I now call this meeting of the Kansas State University Student Senate to order. Will you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will now move into first roll call.
Adams, Armstrong, Arnaldi, Belk, Bergston, Bothwell, Bowen, Boykin, Brown, Burke, Carpenter, Cole, DeMoranville, Dunfield, Esses, Gammon, Gillian King, Grover, Hammond, Heatherman, Alec Hildreth, Derek Hildreth, Huffman, Jabin, Carmali, Kidd, King, Kulkarni, Leverett, Mari, Marshall, Morgan, Neatery, Orth, Borzakowski, Pelton, Penny, Riffle, Rodriguez, Roman, Smith, Spellman, Spencer, Sullivan, Tile, Thompson, Chumlin, Wessel, Wilhelm, and Whitmer. Okay, directors real quick. Clark, Cruz, Gertson, Jennings, Pick, Lundeen, McIntosh, McKenzie, Minu, Picer, Sedlacek, Tuttle, Underwood, Valdez, and Works. All right, we have 4 listeners present, 2 excused, and 10 absent.
All right, we'll now move into first open period. Our first open period speaker this evening is Krista Del Isola with K-State 360.
Is it on? Okay. Hi, how's everyone doing? Good. Happy Thursday, almost Friday. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about K-State 360 and a couple things that we're doing upcoming. So one of the first things that we're doing is we are doing a focus group, and we really want to have an SGA focus group, solely just SGA members. So we're making some big changes to our program, and that they're going to be coming out either in the next year or so. But we want to have you all speak into those changes. So we're changing how our requirements work and what's going to be expected of students completing the program, and kind of trying to take it to a whole new level. So we really want to have representation. So what I'm hoping to do is set up at least one focus group that's only SGA members. In this focus group, I would find a time that works for your schedule. So what I'm looking for is volunteers who'd be willing to be on that focus group. And then I will send you an email with a doodle poll. So is there anybody that would be super interested? Raise your hand. One person. This is super awesome. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You guys are great. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, if you want to be on it, be in the focus group, and you didn't raise your hand, that's okay. I'm gonna pass around a little sheet so you can sign your name and your email address so I can get in contact with you. And then just if you'll pass it back up to Bill, he'll give it to me at the end of the meeting. The other thing I wanted to share with you all is how many of you know that you have points in K-State 360? Okay, how many of you are like, I don't know, I've never logged in? Okay, well, you might have points, especially if you've swiped in at events with your student ID. So we're having an event on April 30th. We're calling it K-State 360 Points Palooza. So this is a way that we want to incentivize you to attend events outside of the classroom. So what it's going to be, it's kind of like a silent auction raffle event. You're going to get to actually spend those points that you've earned. So we have some really cool prizes available for you to potentially win, such as getting to lead the Wabash Cannonball at a football game next season, getting to eat lunch with President Myers. I just got $100 donated from Dylan's. Who likes groceries? Free groceries, right? So definitely make sure that you come to our event. It's on April 30th. It'll be most of the day from about 11 to 5 where you can come and get your raffle tickets. So if you don't have points in there, go ahead and start earning them. Your points will be good every point that you earn up into the Monday before the event. So make sure that you're earning those points and then get excited to come out and spend them and get free stuff. Thank you.
All right, our next speaker for first open period is Sarah Hyman, the Center for Student Involvement Assistant Director for Leadership.
Hi, thanks everybody for letting me come speak to you real quick. I just am here to give a couple updates from the Center for Student Involvement. As you may have seen in K-State today, we put out an announcement today letting everybody know that registration for student organizations is going to be held in the fall this year, fall 2019. Normally that's held in April, but because we are transitioning from OrgSync into a new platform, that is taking place over the summer, and so that's forcing us to move registration to the fall so that we can collect everybody's information at that time. So I'm here to let you know that registration is moving, but also as we change platforms from OrgSync, we're looking to name what the new system is going to be. We have some flexibility with that. We're kind of looking to name it something that's K-State specific that we can continue to use as our online portal for student organizations, no matter what the software really is. And so I'm looking for name suggestions. You definitely don't have to give those to me tonight, but on April 1st, we're putting out a student organization survey, and if I have any suggestions, I'd love to include those in our survey that we send out to all the groups so that we can kind of collect student feedback at large about what we should name the new system. So if you have any creative ideas, feel free to let us in the Center for Student Involvement know. You can email me directly. My name is Sarah Hyman, or you can just contact anybody in CSI with your suggestions. And if you have those, we would appreciate to have them by next Wednesday, the 27th, so that I can make sure they get included into our survey. So that's the second thing I want to let you know is that we're working on naming the new platform. It won't be called OrgSync anymore. And then as I just mentioned, the third thing I just wanted to let you all know is that there will be a survey going out to student organizations. We'll send it out April 1st, and then we'll leave it open for a few weeks, probably 3 weeks, and close it. I believe the date is Friday the 19th. So those are my updates for you all. Does anybody have any questions? Right here. Oh, sorry, not me. Yeah.
Will that survey be going out to all students or just presidents of organizations?
That is a great question. We definitely want to hear from at least one person in every organization. I believe we plan to put that out in K-State Today, in the CSI e-newsletter as well and an email to student organization presidents and leaders. So all members will have the opportunity to complete the survey, but what we're at least wanting is one member from each organization to do that.
Further questions? Intern Oxner.
Yeah, could you share your email with us?
Sure. My email is sjheiman. So it's S.J. Hyman.
Thank you.
Further questions? Speaker Pro Tempore Arnoldi.
There's been some talk about, the change from OrgSync for a while now. Is the new software going to be completely new, or is it more of like an update on what OrgSync already is?
That's a great question. And I'll tell you what I know, or what I understand, is that OrgSync was bought by a company called Campus Labs, and they have a different platform called Engage. So that is the product name. If you've heard us using the word Engage, that's what that new version of OrgSync is called. I don't believe it's the same platform with update. I think it's a new product.
Further questions? Intern Coordinator Polson.
Yeah, is this survey similar to the one that was administered last year?
It's we looked at the survey that was sent out last year, and then what actually we did is said we think we got great feedback from those questions, so we're actually changing the questions in the survey this year to evaluate different things this time around.
Cool.
Further questions for our speaker? All right, seeing none, thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
All right, with that, are there any more speakers for first open period? All right, if not, we'll move into approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Senator Wilhelm?
Move to approve minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. If there are no objections, the minutes are approved. We'll now move into announcements. First, next Thursday, a week from today, on March 28th, the Governmental Relations Committee will be hosting a town hall for the Manhattan City Commissioners. Roll call will be taken at the beginning of Senate at 7 p.m. as normal, and the town hall will begin immediately after. This event will be open to all of SGA, all K-State students, and Manhattan community members. Please come prepared with questions for our local representatives. And we'll hear more about this during committee reports. Second, next week we'll also have the last meeting of the 2018-2019 Student Senate term. As a result, the annual SGA banquet will be held next Thursday at 5:30 p.m. at JP's in the Union. This is a time to reflect on the accomplishments of the past year and recognize outstanding work on behalf of students. Proxies for tonight: Bothwell for Bowen, Mari for Tile. And SGA members of the week this week are intern Andrew Booz for his hard work and dedication this year put into our governing documents, and Senator Katie Sullivan for being elected president of the Kansas Young Democrats. So if we could give them a round of applause. And the quote of the week this week: our greatness has always come from people who expect nothing and take nothing for granted. Folks who work hard for what they have, then reach back and help others after them. Michelle Obama. We'll now move into approval of appointments. Is there a motion to consider Resolution 48? Intern Coordinator Bothwell.
I move that we consider Resolution 48.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Consider Resolution 48. Will the author please come forward?
Resolution 18-1948, approval of new student senators by Senate Operations Committee. Whereas the Senate Operations Committee follows a specific process in order to fill student senator vacancies, whereas there are currently 3 vacancies for student senators within the College of Human Ecology, whereas all individuals listed in the 2018 election results for the College of Human Ecology have been contacted, whereas in keeping with the process to fill vacancies, the intern coordinators have submitted their nominations to fill the vacancies, and whereas Morgan Betancourt, Peyton Kavanaugh, and Ethan Rice have been nominated for the remaining positions. Be it resolved that Section 1, Morgan Betancourt, Peyton Kavanaugh, and Ethan Rice be approved as student senators for the College of Human Ecology.
All right, with that, are there any questions or corrections for the author? If not, is there a motion on this resolution? Intern Coordinator Bothwell.
I move that we approve this resolution unanimously. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this resolution unanimously. If there are no objections, this resolution is approved unanimously. Will you 3 please come to the front of the room to be sworn in? right, if you could go ahead and raise your right hand, and at the end of the statement, if you could say, I do. I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of Student Senator and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association. I do. Awesome. If you could introduce yourself with your name, your major, your hometown, and your favorite smell.
Hi, I'm Peyton Kavanaugh. I'm a kinesiology major, pre-med. I'm from Salina, and my favorite smell is right before it rains.
Hi, my name is Morgan Betancourt. I study apparel marketing. I'm from Almego, Kansas, and my favorite smell is freshly baked brownies.
I'm Ethan Rice. I'm a sophomore in personal financial planning from Mound Ridge, Kansas, and my favorite smell is icy hot.
Can we give our new senators a round of applause? All right, we will now move into committee reports. Are there any committee chairs who would like to give a report? Chair Spellman.
Okay, so this week the committee report is going to be a little bit different. This report presentation, something similar that GR has been doing for the past couple Senate meetings, but this one's going to be especially important because we have a special event next week. Matt, if you want to go to the next slide. So next week we have our town hall with the Manhattan City Commissioners. It will be during Senate, so roll call will start at 7, kind of what the announcement said today. So you are expected to show up, we'll go through roll, and the town hall will start right after that. So we've invited all 5 commissioners. Right now we have 3 of them that are confirmed, so it will be an open meeting for the Manhattan community. Those 3 commissioners, Linda Morse, Usha Reddy, and Jared McKee. Hopefully the other 2, we're still trying to get them on board, but we for sure have the 3 for now. The where, of course, is in Wildcat Chambers, but the purpose of this presentation, and especially going into the actual event next week, is to educate Senate. So right now I've come up and I've given a bunch of presentations. I've talked about the town hall for the past few weeks, but the ultimate goal of what we're trying to do today is to inform all of you and make sure that for next week, you know what, of course, we're talking about. If you have any questions, coming up with them beforehand, and hopefully this kind of gets you started to become more engaged in this issue, both inside Senate and then, of course, outside with the Manhattan community too.
Yeah, so this evening, this is just kind of a roadmap of what we're going to cover. So we're going to start just by discussing the current rental situation in the city of Manhattan generally. And then we're going to have just an open discussion about everybody's personal experiences with renting, or maybe stories you've heard. And then we're going to talk about some of the challenges, including affordability and safety, that we've kind of identified within the city that have been ongoing for a number of years as we've learned. So these are not new problems, and we're just going to kind of go into those a little more in depth as well. Just a couple things to keep in mind as we have this discussion. These are just kind of a couple things for us as norms here. We want this to be a safe and courteous discussion, so everybody should feel comfortable sharing their experiences. And what that means is we want to be respectful of people's stories and their experiences so that everybody can feel comfortable sharing, because we want everybody to feel comfortable sharing. And that means actively listening to everybody and what they have to say. Because again, we're going to be meeting with the city commissioners next week, so the bar is going to be a little higher, and that's kind of the point here, is to, if we start the discussion now, and we kind of have this discussion with each other, then when we go into next week, we will be better set to kind of have that discussion with them, our city leaders. And then the last thing is just speak up. So we do want to hear everybody's stories if you have a story to share. So please, please share your stories. Cool.
All right. So there was supposed to be a phone number here, what you're supposed to do. Apparently it didn't sync. This is great. So the current situation is, I know, it's awesome. The current situation with the rental housing problem is that if you have a problem, the onus is on you to request a rental inspection. So what you're supposed to do is call this phone number, which I want to say is 785.
We'll look it up.
We'll look it up and get it back to you. But the caveat to that is if you live with more than 4 people in your house, or rental, whatever you want to call it, probably shouldn't do it because they can evict everyone that is the 5th, 6th, 7th person kicked out. They can kick you guys out because it's technically against the law to live in a unit with more than 4 people. So yeah. All right. And just kind of reiterating the mission statement, the mission of KSU SGA is to provide the student body with an honest representation and committed advocacy through the assessment of university issues and proactive service for the betterment of the campus community. KSU SGA responds to student needs, enhances the student experience, and fosters student engagement. And so the words that stand out to me there are committed advocacy and betterment of or service for the betterment of the campus community. This is an issue that affects pretty much every single student here at K-State. At some point or another, you're going to be renting in Manhattan, and we should be focusing on this issue. So if you want to go to the next slide. So our first question is, what has been your rental experience in Manhattan? We want to hear things like, where do you live? How are your landlords? Was finding a rental easy for you? Things like that. So interact with us, please. Alec.
My landlord's nice. House is pretty nice. I like it.
Okay.
Let's try this. How about how many people here rent in the city of Manhattan? So like 60% maybe. That's a pretty good amount of people in this room that are renting in the city. And then how many people live in residence halls or like fraternity, sorority, like organized living, quote unquote? All right. So okay, cool. So yeah. So everybody that's renting. So it's a little different with housing and dining, but like these issues are focused mainly on renting in the city of Manhattan because that is what the city has like most jurisdiction over. So when we're talking about some of these issues, that's what we're kind of focusing on is the people renting. But I imagine many of you who are in those organized living situations either have or will like potentially live in a rental unit in the city at some point in your time here at K-State. I know for me, that was my experience, was I started in the residence halls and then I moved out off campus and now I'm renting. So, you know, even like you all, this will affect you as well. But yeah, so what other stories do we have? Like what other experiences have you had renting and like finding your houses and things like that?
I think it's kind of annoying if I want something affordable, I have to have 3 roommates, because most of the housing for one person is above $600. But I understand, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. Don't like having 3 roommates. I like my privacy. So.
I feel that. I also live alone, so I understand that struggle.
Yeah.
Who else? I guess I can talk to my story a little bit. So I'll be up front. I have struggled to pay for my housing. Right now it eats about 60 to 70% of my income on average. My rent right now is $625 on top of utilities. So I pay for utilities, I pay electricity, and then I also pay for Wi-Fi. That this month was a little bit higher, so that was about $150 for both of those. And it's currently eating up a large chunk of my budget this month. I have struggled when it comes to paying for food, paying for stuff I need. So I have utilized resources such as Cat's Cupboard. That's been something that has helped me out tremendously. But I know that my story is not unique. So maybe not a lot of you people in this room right now have been affected by a similar situation, but a lot of people on the rest of K-State campus have. So even if you have a friend or a family member that has struggled with this issue, it's important to know, even moving forward, that we're not in the minority here. There's a lot of other students that are similarly placed to kind of my situation.
So let's kind of dive in on the affordability thing there specifically. So when we say affordability, this is kind of like a vague term, is like what is affordable, and a lot of times that's going to depend on like your personal situation, your personal like budget, where your money comes from, how many hours you can take on at work, if you work at all, like et cetera, et cetera. So just kind of like with these definitions up here in mind, like the question would be like, do you personally live in affordable housing? So affordability is no more than 30% of your income, like your monthly budget is spent on your housing, including utilities. So that would be affordable, is if you're under 30% threshold. And I doubt most of us like meet that. I know I personally fall somewhere between cost burdened at 30% and severely cost burdened at 50%. And I know some people are like definitely in that severely cost burdened category. So maybe the question would be, how many of you, before we threw this up here, thought your housing was reasonably affordable? Okay, and how many of you changed your minds based on these definitions here? So that's most of the people that had raised their hands. I'd say maybe like, again, 60, 70% of the people there. But yeah, so do you live in affordable housing?
Not so much answering, but it's more just like kind of a question, playing devil's advocate, like depending on what some of like the mindsets of the people that come next week will like maybe be in, is like, I'm assuming that this is based off someone who has a full-time job or income. So how is it adjusted, like how is that response adjusted for college students where very few probably are working 40 hours a week? Probably more so than one think. But.
Yeah, so if you didn't hear Miranda's question or devil's advocate response, she said basically how is this, should this basically apply to college students? Because college students are full-time students and they're not going to be working full-time. So should these numbers be reflected to students? If you want to go to that chart. So I actually went to Jody Kraus, who's the PowerCat financial person on the 3rd floor. The union has a 3rd floor, by the way. Didn't know that. So college is already pretty expensive. We know that. She recommended that students budget roughly $400. These are ballpark measurements, so keep that in mind too. She recommended that students budget roughly $400, which is half of the budget. If you've heard the phrase rent eats first, it means that you're more than likely probably going to pay for housing before anything else. The next biggest item was food, which was $150 a month. Then transportation, which is $50 a month. And then we have all the other smaller categories such as health, clothing as like necessity, savings, what she recommended students just throwing away, like not throwing away, saving $5 or $10 every month out of each paycheck just because it's a good habit. And that miscellaneous budget can include things like going out to Aggieville, if we want to throw that out there, as well as like if things were to happen. So with students already 1 in 5 students are food insecure on campus. I personally feel that those numbers are pretty accurate as 30% of income. But keeping that in mind too, this is what PowerCat Financial says, this is what students should budget for. So keeping that in mind, do you live in affordable housing?
That's time.
Time for the speakers has expired. There's a motion to extend. Chair Carpenter.
I move to extend the speaker's time by 5 minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Extend the speaker's time by 5 minutes. If there are no objections, you have 5 more minutes.
Saiba, you were shaking your head no.
I live in Jardine, so I rent, but I don't have a landlord. But my issue with Jardine is it's on-campus housing, but I'm paying over $600 a month to live there. And it feels like the prices are increasing about $20, $25 every year. So my rent started out at $575 and it's going up to $630.
Thank you for sharing that, by the way. So even students living on campus aren't living in affordable housing either, which that's a whole nother debate. So if you want to go to the next slide. So the city of Manhattan actually has codes that say, like, are basically like minimum standards of safety that you say, like, your door should lock, your window should lock, you should have proper ventilation so you're not getting mold in your house, things like that. It's very long, But I know some students live in houses where the pipes are leaking, or like AC units have caught on fire, things like that, and the landlords don't fix them. And I'm curious to see if anyone in this room has stories to share about unsafe housing. Natalie.
Okay, I'll share one. Okay, so the first ice storm that we had, it was like a Tuesday where they considered canceling school, and unfortunately they did not. But I came home from class and I saw some girl who had hit a yellow pole with her car, and she was standing outside of her car. And our entire parking lot was such an ice rink that parking my car like was really terrifying, like just to get in the little parking lot. And then to walk from my parking lot, which is sloped, to my front door, it was like, it was like some of the most slick ice I've ever experienced. And so I immediately called my landlord and was like, hey, like we need to get some salt out here because this is like not working out. I had to leave a message. And then as this was happening, this girl is like outside of her car and another person is trying to pull into the parking lot. And then we told this person like, hey, we're like trying to like tell them like it's an ice rink, like you need to like honestly not come in right now because the rest of the roads had been salted by the city. And she ignored us, and then she drove in and proceeded to like hit another car. And then I went into my apartment, was watching out the window, and then saw a car hit another car and then another car. So I saw like 5 cars get involved in 3 separate accidents. So it was really a scary moment, but the concern that I had was that when I called my landlord, they were unavailable, and then I called the other like manager of the property, and he did finally pick up after like the 2nd or 3rd call, and then there were other people who were calling as well, like watching the action. And eventually I got him on the phone, and he said, well, we won't be coming out to salt because it sounds like there might be precipitation tomorrow. And I was like, the concern is that like there was a girl who's like driving like another car, and she was trying to leave and go to class, and she just had to give up because even though the roads were fine to get to school, like she was unable to leave the parking lot because of the danger of like moving between the cars. So I guess my concern was like the unconcern of the landlord, and then also like the inability to like function as a student and get to class was really like, I guess, shocking to me.
Yeah, landlords are often negligent in Manhattan, unfortunately, when it comes to safety concerns. I know one of the renters that I talk to on a weekly basis, her house isn't properly irrigated. And so what happens every single time it rains is that water seeps down into the foundation, it gets on the walls and everything. And what that's done is that it's created toxigenic mold in her house, in which it like is posing a health concern. So thank you, Natalie, for sharing that story. So what has happened that people have identified in Manhattan is this community survey in 2017. The 2 top most dissatisfying items were 1, the availability of affordable housing, and 2, the condition of rental housing. So this was a survey conducted by more than just the community members. It also included students. And so it's obviously an issue recognized by the community. This is like going over the current situation again. A rental code inspection is something that is wanted by the community. It's the 2nd most satisfying item on the Manhattan Community Survey in 2017. Go back a slide, sorry. And it was also specifically identified within the Community Solutions to Affordable Housing group that was done earlier this academic year, where they had a diverse group of 95 community stakeholders, including renters, landlords, property managers, things like that. So
that's time.
Perfect. Speakers expired. Is there a motion to extend? Intern Coordinator Bothwell.
I move that we extend the speaker's time by 10.
We don't 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to extend the speaker's time by 2 minutes. If there are no objections, you have 2 more minutes.
So your time to act is now. You're actually going to be interfacing with decision makers. If you're really passionate about affordable and safe housing in Manhattan, the city commissioners are going to be here next week. You'll be able to ask not pointed questions, but questions asking or urging them to take action on this through a rental inspection program. So with that, do you all have any questions?
Senator Brown.
Are there any specific issues or asks that we're having for the commissioner that are coming, such as we really think that, this is most important?
Yeah, so the organization that I'm a part of is Renters Together, and we're really trying to push for a rental inspection program that enforces a minimum standard of safety so people aren't living in abhorrent living conditions. So if you could push them to do something like that by asking them, will you support a rental inspection program, that would be great.
Senator Neatery?
Did you think about inviting the new senators that were elected, since most of us will actually be leaving after next week's meeting? Not most, but just a lot of us.
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So we actually have new senator trainings right before. So 5:45 is when those start, and they go for an hour until 6:45. And at the very end and kind of throughout the meeting next week, we're actually going to be kind of throwing the town hall out there. So inviting all of them, the new senators that have been added to OrgSync, they saw the agenda for this week as well as the announcements, and the town hall was one of those announcements. So it's open to not only this current Senate body, but of course the new senators for next year, all K-State students, and the Manhattan community members.
Follow up.
So are the people involved in like training those new senators, are they not going to be able to go to banquet?
We are still figuring that one out. Further questions? Intern Coordinator Bothwell.
I was just going to ask John, I know you have a lot of experience with advocacy. So do you have any strategies or anything in mind, because you're talking about the Ask for the Rental Inspections program, is there any type of questions or things we should be trying to do to engage with the commissioners to make that ask happen, basically?
Yeah, so Renters Together is doing they call it bird dogging, which is a very stylized form of asking questions. They're doing a bird dogging training at Lucin Bistro this Sunday at 4:30. So if you want to go to the meeting room and learn how to do that, that's where you're going to learn.
Further questions? Intern Hines.
I defer my speaking rights to Ben Clark. So as I understand it right now, if I wanted to have an inspection on my apartment, I would just call the city and I could get one for free at the quickest possible time. Is that correct?
It's whenever they have availability, and it's usually during class time. And it puts the onus on you to make sure that your living situation is safe. I dropped my pencil. Whereas we do inspections on restaurants to make sure that they're safe. If they're going to be offering rental housing to the public, it's something that has bipartisan support to make sure that it is meeting minimum standard of safety. So yes, you can request a rental inspection as discussed at the beginning of the presentation, but it doesn't solve the issue of minimum standard of safety.
Further questions? Could you just tell us a little bit about the format of what this is going to look like next week, what the city commissioners are going to be saying and what we're going to be kind of asking?
Yeah, so what's going to happen is that they're going to give an opening statement, and we'll have some guiding questions to start off the town hall. And then following after that, there's going to be kind of an open questioning period where you all can ask questions of those decision makers. And that's where you're going to really be pushing for things that you want as student leaders. We did pass a resolution unanimously earlier this year that basically said we want you to look into rental inspections, so this is time for you to take action on that.
All right, are there any more questions? All right, seeing none, thank you all so much. We all look forward to the town hall. Are there any more committee chairs who would like to give a report? Chair Colburn.
It's cool, I can click. Okay, so part of the, I'm gonna move this down a bit, sorry, Matt. Okay, so part of the legislation creating the special committee on membership was to give a report on this day, which is March 21st, happy second day of spring. So this is just gonna be a verbal report because we're waiting to see just kind of what happens tonight with both of our main pieces of legislation, and if any questions come up and things like that, we're going to wait on the written report just so that can be fully fleshed out. But if you have any questions specifically, of course, you can ask them at the end of this presentation, and then also just keep your eye out for that report that will be submitted to Ryan next week. So that's that piece. So we're just going to kind of go through and tell the story of what the special committee has done this year. So the first few meetings that took place last semester, we just kind of did a brainstorm of different things relating to the charge of the committee and what we thought fell under the legislation and those legislative duties and just under the special committee on membership. So we talked a lot, and there were a lot of people at these early meetings, which I was really grateful for and thankful for. So thank you if you came out to those, even if you weren't a voting member. We had like 23 people usually, and that is a lot, and it was really good, and we got a lot of good discussion going. So the first thing was just the intern program. That was the first piece. It was created by the changes to the intern program were created by the special committee last year, and that special committee asked the next year's committee to look and review at the intern program because it was new and because it was so different. So we wanted to just kind of check in and see how that went. And we also talked a lot about Senate engagement. So how do we keep senators engaged? What do we do there? Office hours, different systems, transition documents. We also talked about outreach pieces and things that we needed to work on to improve membership. So we talked about the possibility or the purposes and the different pieces like the communications director and student engagement committee and how both of those things were functioning, how they functioned together, how they functioned with the intern program, what could be done to make any outreach better to engage further students in SGA. And we also talked about new senator trainings because that can be a big misconnect between this Senate engagement or these like engaging students outside and then also Senate engagement. So as we all are new outside of campus or have new people come in, how do we keep people engaged and educated? And we feel like there's a lot that can be missing from senator trainings at the beginning of each term. And then also just the future of the special committee. So this was the 4th year in a row that a special committee on membership had been created. And we just felt that we kind of needed to reevaluate why we're doing this. We obviously this year as Senate felt that it was important to have, but if we want this to happen year after year after year, why don't we create a permanent and standing place for the committee? So we kind of talked about that, and that was what guided the rest of our discussions and what we focused on the rest of the year. So the first is the intern program, and actually Nathan and Sadie are going to be giving a presentation tonight about the intern program and the different successes that they saw there. And so we kind of got previews of that throughout when we were talking about what changes needed to be made. And so the pieces of legislation that have already been passed and then the piece that's up tonight kind of address these 4 things. So just simple things is what most of it was. We didn't feel a need for a big overhaul because there were 5 different interns, including myself, that served on the committee. So we had some discussions just kind of if we saw any issues and also just speaking with our peers in the program, what problems we saw with it. And we didn't really see any big issues. There were a couple things that Nathan and Sadie saw. So changing the word course to class because that was what they referred to it as, and it just made a little bit more sense in practice. Phase 1 to phase 2, the transition, so currently you need to apply and there is a legislated cap of 35. We felt that and Nathan and Sadie felt that was a little too stringent and that cap could change. So that did actually was not followed this year, I guess, because there were 36, if I'm correct, and I'm sure that they'll go over these numbers. There are 36 people who applied to be a phase 2 intern, and it seems odd to cut 1 person. So we created that flexibility so that they're allowed to do that next year, and then also kind of made it what it would look like if there did need to be cuts and what people would make those decisions. We also talked about adding the responsibility of creating and having contact with new student services. We did make a couple changes to that after some concerns in committee and just from people outside of the committee on what that would look like. So you'll see those changes in legislation tonight, but we made it more broad about prospective students and creating visits and coordinating visits with prospective students throughout the year for the intern coordinators as a responsibility, and then also giving contact information to the pertinent individuals. And finally, the Constitution changes that were passed last week so that intern coordinators can swear in interns. That has been a long-standing practice of SGA and hasn't been allowed technically, so we changed that.
Sweet.
So then we also created the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. So this is up for final action this evening as well, correct? So this is being created out of the Student Engagement Committee and the Special Committee on Membership. So it basically, as Lily discussed, we talked about having a special committee be a permanent committee, basically like permanent committee on membership. And then we felt that that kind of overlapped with some of the duties of student engagement. Specifically, Vedant talked about just kind of basically just lump the two together and poof, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. This language, this name of the committee mirrors what other institutions call theirs. So this isn't like totally new water. It's new water for us, but it's been like well treaded by other schools. We kind of followed that pattern, and we basically took all the things we liked about Special Committee on Membership and all the things we liked about student engagement and left everything we didn't. So the membership is going to be 13 total people, 6 to 8 senators, 2 to 4 at-large members, 2 appointed exec members, 1 appointed judicial member, and then speaker pro tem, intern coordinators, and the communications director, SGA communications director will all serve as ex officio members. And then the directives of this committee are going to be some broad, some specific. So outreach to college-wide organizations. So our duties as senators are to reach out to our department organizations within our college. So this committee will kind of do what student engagement was tasked to do, which is outreach to non-departmental organizations. And that's going to be kind of one of their broad directives. And then the demographic survey, so this is something that's traditionally been done by Speaker Pro Tem, and we felt that by giving it to a committee, they could better execute it and analyze the results. So they're going to do that every year from here on out. And then another directive is to educate Senate on issues and resources, so do presentations like this, just about different things that might need to be talked about. And then just kind of like a super broad directive, which is like find and fix the problems. So there's always problems to solve as far as like membership and whether we're doing our jobs well. And that's kind of what the broad task is identify where those like pinch points and those problems are, and then like figure out ways to fix them. So that's going to be kind of up to the committee each year as far as where they want to like attack and where they want to like, what they want to go after. So yeah, it's going to be really dependent on the time, and it's very flexible as far as hopefully that directive won't ever need to change because like I said, there's always problems to be solved and there's always new ways to solve them. So that is the DEI committee.
Okay, so new senator trainings. There's not a lot up on that slide right now because we're still kind of figuring out the nitty-gritty details of it. But we did have the first new senator training tonight. So kind of like what we talked about in the housing presentation. Of course, some new faces. We welcomed them to the group, kind of explained what SGA is, what we do every week, the opportunities that we have as an organization, and kind of how the branch is broken down. So tonight was just kind of a brief overview of all of SGA. So we went through all 3 branches. We explained how each of them work. We talked about the standing committees, the caucus leaders specific to the legislative branch. For executive, we kind of dabbled in the cabinet members, what student body president, vice president do on kind of a day-to-day basis. And then we talked about the judicial branch. So kind of how they enforce a student code of conduct. Peter was also there, and he introduced himself and kind of explained how that branch worked. So in terms of dates, of course, today was the first day for those trainings. There will be 4 total. So those are going to be every Thursday for the next 4 weeks, today being week 1, of course. Those start at 5:45 in Wildcat Chamber. So right before Senate, it gives new senators the perfect opportunity to kind of get a little bit more of a better understanding of what SGA is, and then they have the opportunity to come to Senate, to engage, and kind of get a head start on what they're going to be doing for the next term. In terms of the lesson, again, those are kind of details that we're still figuring out right now. Today was just the broad overview, but we will be kind of going more into topics like talking about how legislation works. So we talked about how Senate can pass bills, resolutions, commendations, but we're going to go more into how do you write a commendation? How does a bill operate? Talking about our constitutions, bylaws, our statutes, how our governing documents work. And then, of course, we will be talking about how Senate actually operates coming into the 7 p.m. Thursday Senate meetings. So we'll probably do a mock Senate training and just kind of prepare the new senators for the next year to come.
And I will add on that, because we are still planning and figuring out those small details, if you have any input on that, and if you thought that your new Senate and your introduction to Senate could use some improvement, let us know. Sadie is specifically charging those up and making those beautiful PowerPoints if you've seen them. But you can come to me. Ryan is also coordinating them as speakers, so just any faces that you've seen associated with the special committee, let us know, because we will still be figuring out those last details for the next few that are coming up, and more specific lessons and lesson planning in the coming week. So that is open to input, I guess. So yeah, those are the pieces that we focused on this year. I'll kind of give it all to you for questions if you have any specific questions about how we operated, how we decided to go places. But that was just an overview, what we talked about. And I think we've kind of come up in front of Senate a lot. So maybe some of this was redundant, but I hope that you're all staying engaged in what the special committee was doing. And yeah, I stand for questions.
Are there any questions for the speakers? Senator Brown.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe new senator training is under like the pro tem and speaker's responsibility. Is that going to be something that is changing and going forward? It's going to be more like intern/DE&I committee?
Yeah, so we didn't make a legislative change for that. I think that's something that should be explored next year. We just kind of took hold of it because that's in previous years the special committee has. People have taken charge under that just because it is under the speaker and pro tem's job to work on those. But I think we all know that they're kind of busy year to year, and so there have been individuals who have taken the charge. So I think that's a really interesting place to explore next year. We didn't make any changes to that long term though.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, thank you all. Are there any more committee chairs who would like to give a report? Chair Penny?
Yeah, so one responsibility of privilege fee is accepting any allocation of funds that move from a reserve account to an operating account for different uses. So have some cool news to share. We just allowed KSTB to move $18,000 from their reserve to their operations account to purchase all new and operating system like soundboard and a lot of that software. So there's a brand new director there. He was really excited. You can ask anyone in the committee about it, but expect some new things from KSTB. It's their 70th year, so it's just a cool thing that one of our entities that we're funding is doing.
Any questions for Chair Penny? All right, seeing none, are there any more committee chairs who would like to give a report? If not, we'll move into directors' reports. Are there any directors who would like to give a report? Intern coordinators Bothwell and Polson.
It's not. Our presentation isn't pulled up yet. Sadie's going to get it pulled up right now. But we are giving our end of the year intern program report. If you remember the last semester, at the last meeting of that semester, we kind of updated you on what the year looked like. Since this is the first year of like the new intern program, there's just kind of a lot of changes and a lot of things to talk about. So we hope to engage everybody with the body with that. Once Sadie gets it pulled up, we'll kind of walk through everything about membership and what the year looked like. So give us just a moment.
Yep, it's on. Okay. Yeah, so like Nathan said, we kind of, at the beginning of the year, told ourselves that we would be presenting to you all on how this year has gone for us. And with that, we'll get started. So when I started making this presentation, I kind of read through Bill 77 again. Shout out to Ryan for printing me my very own copy. This is a whereas clause that really stood out to me, and I'll read it really quick. Whereas incorporating the beneficial components of both the AFP and the SGA intern program would produce students most fit for KSU SGA positions, allow for any KSU student to have access to resources within KSU SGA, and provide an environment conducive to relationship building and individual accountability. So as Nathan and I got to work, these were a few to-do list items that we wanted to focus on. And as we go through our presentation, I hope you're able to see what we've been implementing to obtain these goals.
So kind of with that, the one thing that I want to touch on is if anyone who was here last year remembers, this was actually a really controversial change. Really funny thing, I actually debated against the first draft of this bill, even though I am intern coordinator now. So it's kind of funny what that looked like, and we eventually were able to reach a consensus, but the kind of initial concerns with the new intern program was kind of like the sense of community. Since it was going to be like an expanded program, I think that was a common concern. I think the interns in the room can attest to like that you really do get to know those other people pretty well. They become like your really good friends and peers. So by expanding the program, I think people were worried about like growing so big that people wouldn't get to know each other. With that, there was also the concern that we wouldn't fit in Wildcat Chamber. And I think even this year, we've had a couple nights that have been really close to that when we've had like all the interns here. Also, again, one of the concerns was just the like outright number of interns. Since there was no sort of cap on the initial draft of the bill, there were concerns that like everybody who showed up was going to stick around for the rest of the year. And we were concerned that that could lead even like up to like 100 plus interns. I think that's a little unrealistic, but that was a concern brought up by some people. There also was kind of, once there was a cap in place, there was an idea that that might discourage people. So that was kind of like the big idea of, and like conversation was, does having a cap like discourage new members from feeling encouraged to join? And then finally, even because there were like different classes throughout the year, I know some people had a concern that like those different classes would feel like they were being treated differently throughout the year. So that was a concern that Sadie and I tried to address throughout the year as well with the work that we've done.
Also, as we were selected intern coordinators, one thing that I was really concerned about is that Nathan and I wouldn't have enough time to give each intern and to really like create a special experience for them. And something really interesting about our partnership is that Nathan was an intern and I was not. So a lot of our perspective from the very beginning was very different, and something I think you'll kind of see throughout this presentation really helped us. So going through the timeline of what the year looked like, we started Class 1, Phase 1. I believe it was like...
it was like the second week of September. It was like really early.
And we really didn't know what to expect. We printed like 150 agendas. That was probably overkill. But we were super excited, and you'll see like later on how many people we had then. And then we had a week break to look over applications, and we had 33 applications. So the 36 number has been thrown out a little bit, and I'd like to clarify that because I got confused as well. We had 36 eligible, and so before everyone applied, we were like, well, if they all apply, we're going to accept all of them. But 33 out of the 36 ended up applying. So we actually didn't break the cap rule, but we were going to. So then towards the end of October, we added another class. And we'll talk a little bit more about Class 2. They were definitely a different group. Some observations I had. Class 1 was definitely very type A. They were there first. And Class 2 was like relaxed, just really like chill with everything. I didn't really laugh at my jokes, but they were really fun as well. And then we started Phase 2 in a different room. And then in January, we got to merge the two classes, which went a lot smoother than I think we expected. Definitely something we spent a lot of time thinking about, how we could take a group of 33 and a group of 16 and push them together and make them become best friends. And we also started Class 3, which we really didn't know what to expect there either with attendance. And we'll talk about that a little more too.
Yeah, so kind of like breaking down the curriculum for what Class 1 looked like, or excuse me, Phase 1 looked like for each of the classes. So the first meeting, it was a 5-week like course basically. So the first meeting was an intro to SGA, kind of really similar to what new senator trainings looked like tonight. Then each of the following weeks was dedicated to a different branch of SGA. So first we did the legislative branch, where we did like a mock Senate meeting to give everyone the experience to like what it's like to be in Senate. The third week we talked about the executive branch. So with that, we had people like brainstorm platforms and talk about like different cabinet positions and how they can work on like the different initiatives of the president and vice president. The fourth week was judicial branch, so Sadie and I kind of had Peter and Emily just run that meeting since neither of us have been in judicial before. But with that, they actually helped. They did like a hearing right up here in this room, so it was kind of fun to see like students like in trouble, I guess. Some of the interns got to act like that. And then the fifth week, we talked about elections and like what a successful campaign looked like. So we had students kind of talk about their own experience with elections, and we even had like the elections commissioner there, all of those meetings, to be available to answer questions. The one caveat to this is that in the third class, we flipped the order a little bit. That's the first week was still an intro week, but because of the election filing deadline, they actually had the elections week second. In order to like give them the skills needed before that election season started, because if we did it by the fifth week, it already would have been time for the campaign to be basically over. So that was like the only difference with that. We also did cancel 1 week in class 3 because of the mental health dialogue that night. We basically like ran out of space to have like 2 intern meetings as well as time for the mental health dialogue. So we did combine executive and judicial 1 week in order for that to happen. But we did still encourage all of those students to attend the mental health dialogue, and we did have some like class 3 interns who actually attended it. So
something else you'll notice on this slide is at the bottom we included attendance for every single meeting of phase 1. So our very first meeting we had 54 interns or students present, and that was really neat. But you'll notice it went from 54 to 38 pretty quick. So as we go through, you'll kind of see we definitely have room for improvement in a few areas. But it was very interesting as well that class 2 stayed pretty consistent the whole time. And then class 3, everyone came the first 2 meetings, and then when they figured out how to run a campaign, they were like, bye. So a few came back, but they definitely, it was a very different dynamic. Okay, so attendance overall, we saw 59 students in the first class, 23 in the second, and 32 in the third. We kind of didn't know what to expect on class 3, and throughout our term, Nathan and I talked a lot about whether we needed all 3 classes, and I guess we haven't really talked about this, but I definitely think we do. And as we move forward, I think having the 3 different start times was definitely beneficial to reaching as many students as possible. So overall, we connected with 114 students, which I think is pretty impressive. I remember them talking about last year that around 120 had applied for the intern program, and so I feel like that's a pretty like consistent number we're looking at there. And the fact that they all showed up is really cool too, because it's one thing to show up and another to fill out an application. So transitioning to phase 2, this is where I talked about we had out of 59 students in class 1, 39 of them were, I guess that should be 36, I lied. 36 of them should be eligible for phase 2, and then out of that many, 33 out of 36 applied, so my numbers are a little wrong there. But in class 2, we saw a pretty consistent 80% go through the entire phase 1 and continue on.
One thing I want to mention on that real quick is typically if someone chose not to continue on with the program, even if they were eligible, the most like consistent reason that they wouldn't continue was just a time commitment. So I know specifically in class 1, we asked like on surveys, like, are you intending on continuing? And the students who didn't continue, it really was they enjoyed the program, they felt like they learned a lot, but they just didn't have enough time to carve out like one night out of their week for the rest of the year. So that was just really like the biggest reason why students who were eligible didn't apply to continue.
We also saw a lot of interest from band members, and we had a cheerleader in phase 2. So people with those other commitments as well kind of struggled to attend every Thursday. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but making sure that we could still facilitate a really constructive intern program for them as well was a part of our job, I guess. And then looking at programming for phase 2, we had 4 guest speakers throughout the time.
All right, time for the speakers expired. Is there a motion to extend? Senator Cole.
I move to extend the speaker's time by 5 minutes.
We got a lot, but
We'll speed it up.
okay.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to extend the speaker's time by 5 minutes if there are no objections. You have 5 more minutes.
Okay. So along with guest speakers, we had activities like writing legislation. You probably saw the commendation go through for Dr. Bosco. That was written by interns. I did a really fun What's Next office-themed campaigns and elections presentation. So we did that one time. And then a few other activities we had pulled from other areas. And then other things, interns got to participate in Pizza and Politics. We had a Wintern party that was super fun. We did one-on-ones with all the interns, which was probably my favorite part of being intern coordinator. And then 2 different intern dinners. We're doing intern brunch this Saturday, so that'll be fun. And then Nathan and I decided to host an intern banquet as well. So this is kind of a little sample of what we've been doing with all the interns and how we engage with them.
And I would say the most productive piece out of this that like I would recommend is kept for future years is the one-on-one meetings, kind of like Sadie said. That was the most useful, I think, most dynamic part. It was really time consuming. We each had, I think there were between 15 to 30 minute meetings with all of the interns for the first 2 weeks back this semester. So that ate up a significant portion of Sadie and I's time, but it was so worth it. We really got a good handle on where everyone was with like elections, like what branch they were interested in, what their goals were. So it was a really useful experience, and most of the interns I talked to seemed to agree with that. They seemed to like really enjoy that time to have those one-on-one meetings. So
something else to hit on is our mentor-mentee program, which we saw to be really successful. That was cute. Thank you. So a lot of mentor-mentees, Nathan and I kind of take pride in that we brought their friendship together. But that's something I'd love to see continue as well. And I know in past years was really awesome too. So if you want to be a mentor next year, let the new intern coordinators know. Okay, and then acceptance, like I said, we took anyone who applied. So we ended up with 49 Phase 2 interns. And then I wanted to go through and kind of talk about who are interns, where do they come from, what's their perspective. So our male to female ratio was pretty even, that was cool. And then we had a lot of in-state, 5 out-of-state, and 1 international student. And then as far as colleges go, arts and sciences was overwhelmingly the most, a lot of poli-sci. Nathan recruited from one of his classes.
yeah, if a student was like in my philosophy of law class and they were a freshman, they're probably in this room right now. Like they just
Raise
all
your
showed
hand
up.
if you were in that class. Okay, only 1, but there were a lot, I promise.
Yeah, there's like 6 of them, so.
Yeah, and something else we'll hit on later is the business number is a really interesting one we'll talk about. But that's kind of a breakdown you can see. Something else, one part of our to-do list from that whereas clause was to kind of mold interns that are the most like qualified and educated interns we can possibly like add to our body. And something really neat is that we got a lot of them involved on at-large committees. We had 16 of our interns on at-large committees across the university, and then we had 1 committee chair and 1 parliamentarian.
So kind of talking about the relationship between like the intern program and elections. So the total number of people who ended up filing for elections was 122, but the total number of interns, whether that was in class 3, like, or if they were out of phase 1, or if they were like a phase 2 intern who'd been all year, was 44 out of the 114 people who ended up showing up. So that's about like 36% out of the total people who filed for elections was like attended at least 1 intern meeting, which was really exciting, and it was really nice to know that we actually got a lot of students involved. And then, so those phase 2 interns, 31 out of 49 of them ended up filing for elections. And there were actually 5 interns who are actual members of the judicial branch right now, so they weren't even eligible to file at that point. So that means like 36 out of 49 interns were basically like involved in SGA in some capacity by the time election season rolled around. So that's really exciting.
And this is a graph I pulled from last year's presentation. It kind of shows like through the years, it's kind of small font, but there's like the 2013, 2014, all the way to 2018, 2019 chart, and as you see the decline, it went up this year. So that's really exciting, and definitely shows that our change in practices is benefiting our intern program, and that hopefully next year we'll have even more people file. So super cool.
Time for the speakers is expired. Is there a motion to extend intern boost?
I move to extend the speaker's time by 5 minutes.
Second.
Wish we could have that.
Yeah. All right, it's been moved and seconded to extend the speaker's time by 5 minutes if there are no objections. You have 5 more minutes.
Do you want me to talk?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure, you can go.
So I just wanted to include a few things that Nathan and I observed throughout the year. So like I mentioned, class 2 was really cool. 9 out of 23 of the people who attended class 2 were business interns. And we really attribute that to the work our business caucus did, going to the business foundations classes and telling people about the intern program. Personally, that's something I'd love to see next year, all caucuses going to those intro classes and really engaging with students. I know one business senator, or like a newly elected senator in particular, he said, you know, we want to be so involved, but no one comes to us and says, here, let me show you. We're expected to see them. So that was really cool. There was actually one more business intern than arts and sciences, and I'm a business student, so I think that's awesome. And so, yeah, I really wanted to emphasize caucus outreach with that. And then the second point is like the natural decrease in participation. So I know that a lot of people were worried that we were going to like max out Wildcat Chamber and that we'd have so many people interested, it would almost become like too much work for the intern coordinators. And something we noticed was because there was that natural, for lack of a better term, natural selection of interns, we were able to get the most like engaged and excited students in our program. So yeah, we don't need a cap yet, but
yeah. And that really was, like, at least for me personally, I was really concerned that everyone from the first class would end up like choosing to move into phase 2. But I really think those people did kind of just like sort themselves out. I've spoken to a couple people who only attended like 1 or 2 meetings. And even then it was like, you know, they felt like it was really informative. They learned a lot, but they just decided that it wasn't for them. So I think this process of engaging students like immediately and then having them fill out an application kind of afterwards really makes sure that the students who are applying and like choosing to stay for the rest of the year are like super highly engaged and like are really passionate about this. I would say that like as an intern last year, that's like the biggest difference that I noticed, because I still feel like we had that natural decrease in participation in my intern class. I feel like as the year went on, just like students kind of dropped out as they got busy with other things, but they had already applied and taken a spot that could have gone to someone else. So with this system, it kind of makes it so that those engaged students are like really the ones who are continuing towards the end of the year. So.
Yeah, and then kind of along with that, I felt like our engagement as a whole was a lot more, I don't know, people were a lot more engaged. And part of that, as we reflected on the year, is how much accountability and self-initiative was put on the interns themselves. Nathan and I took attendance at phase 1 meetings, but we honestly didn't at phase 2, and we knew that the students who wanted to be there would, and we saw, I would say, a very consistent high number of students attending our meetings. And that's one thing. If a student was on an at-large committee and they felt like their committee rotation was adding more pressure to their schedule, we were very flexible with them in saying, like, we know you're involved and we'll work with you to make sure that you're still having a great experience, but we don't want to stress you out either. So we were very, very flexible with attendance, and I think it really showed that because we were relaxed about it, the interns were more likely to go to a lot more committee meetings and events. And then a few other things. Something today I realized is that in the past our intern groups have been very, very close to one another and very, very social. And for example, this is something little, but last year's intern class had a Snapchat group, and as far as I know, this year doesn't. And I think it's because it was a lot more of a professional like process. So that's just an observation. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's definitely been a lot more work oriented. And then something all of you may have noticed is that we've been frequently filling Wildcat Chambers, which I know is a concern, but personally, I love it when I'm standing in the back and watching like tons of visitors and interns learn about different things. And then the last thing, I meant for that to be CSI. Interns hanging out in CSI and getting to know everyone and feeling comfortable in the space was really important to us. And I will wrap it up. So as we went through everything, we kind of hit on why we like tried to hit all these things and have a successful year. So thank you guys.
All right, with that, are there any questions for our intern coordinators? Chair Spellman.
Okay, so about halfway through the slides, you threw up a graph and it had the percentage of interns that had filed to run for Senate. If I remember the years correctly, there was 2013, 2014, kind of in those ranges. It was around the 70%. Yeah, it was mid and then kind of higher 70%. Do you know what was different back then?
Yeah, so at that point, the intern program had a cap on it, and it was only 25 people. So it wasn't even the 35 that was in my class, so it was even smaller than it used to be. So I would guess that that is it, that there were just a smaller number of people, kind of inflating that statistic a bit.
Senator Wilhelm.
Using that same graph, did we have more interns file this year than any other year, since that's a percentage?
Yeah, we had over 44 people who at least attended a meeting, and so when I was an intern last year, we only had 35 people in the class, so yes.
And also to add, this percentage is actually just phase 2, so this was the 31 out of 49 statistic.
Further questions? Intern Booz.
When putting that whereas clause in the beginning, you had an acronym AFP. Can you just briefly explain what that was?
Yeah, so last year, the special committee facilitated an accelerated fellowship program that was ran very similar to phase 1 of the intern program. And there were it was like started in January and then very similarly to class 3 prepared people for filing for elections. So we pulled from resources there as well to facilitate phase 1.
So the new intern program, it's basically like you take AFP at the beginning and then the old intern program with like the year-long material and smush them together. And that's what this new intern program with 2 phases is.
Yeah.
Further questions? Caucus Leader Kidd.
Yeah, so out of curiosity, is there any data to show students, like the number of students that were in the intern program to those that were actually elected to like actually be senators for the next term?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
I will get back to you.
Yeah, cool. And then follow up, is there any like historical data to show that too? Just again, another sort of metrics too.
I don't know about historical. I do know that we had 10 or 11, I forget the exact number, who didn't get elected out of those 31 who did file, because we had meetings with all of them afterwards. So so I guess it's like 2/3 of them got elected.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions for our intern coordinators? All right, seeing none, thank you both very, very much. Are there any more directors who would like to give a report? Elections Commissioner Shao.
Hi, so I just want to let everyone know that this Sunday at 8 p.m. is going to be our open forum about elections, rules, regulations, and then just anything else about the elections process, like if you have any input of what you think would make the mandatory meetings better or anything like that. The Elections Committee is going to be in CSI at 8 p.m. on Sunday to just kind of talk to anyone. We would love to hear any and all ideas, so if you can't, or if you have literally any ideas about elections at all, please come, or if you can't make it, please email me, and I'll be sure to bring it up. We just really want to create a discussion going and make sure that all of the ideas are represented while we're working on elections reform.
With that, are there any questions for our speaker? All right, seeing none, are there any more directors who would like to give a report? Director Underwood.
Okay, I was going to give an update on Green Action Fund and Recycle Mania. So we have currently for Green Action Fund, we have used all of our funding, and that has funded 7 projects. We started out with $24,000 worth of funding, and after all of the applicants applied, we had a little over $50,000 worth of applicants. So we had to cut down some didn't get funded, and some didn't get full funding. So some of those 7, well actually all 7 of those were Green Apple Bikes, Department of Housing and Dining Eco Reps, Emerald Ash Borer Education, Polytechnic Campus Green Space, KSU Earth Day celebration, Union Recycling Committee got some education placards, and then one of my favorites and one of the ones I'll explain so you know a little bit more about what that was actually funding was Local Fashion Global Impact. And so with that, apparel and textiles studied abroad in Guatemala, and on this trip they met women of the Choa Cruz Weaving Cooperative, where the women in this community only lived on 76 cents to $1.25 a day. And so with that funding that we are supplying apparel and textiles, they're buying environmentally and cost-effective textiles to use on their projects here. And that increases monthly wages of those women in that community by 13%. So not only are some of these projects helping students here have more green initiatives, but we're also helping some people around the world, and that's pretty cool. So I want to thank Donnie for helping on that Green Action Fund and everybody that was on SCTE for funding. So thank you for that. And then also Recycle Mania ends March 30th. So with that, you guys have stuff every day. I know you do. I see cans in here. Those are recyclable. Lots of the objects that you have, if you don't know if it's recyclable or not, just check on it and it'll only have that recycling triangle. And if you don't know for sure, just recycle it. It's true. So we take that to Fort Riley, and through a sorting facility, if it's not recyclable, it gets sorted out. And so if when in doubt, just go ahead and recycle it. And if you messed up, it's not that big a deal. So let's win Big 12 Recycle Mania. Thanks.
With that, are there any questions for our speaker? Treasurer Martin.
Is there a place where you can bring like a lot of stuff to be recycled?
Yes. So I don't know the letter of the parking lot, but the parking lot is north of the Derby complex. That is where Bill runs the recycling center. So anybody can drop that off there, and that goes the same for on-campus recyclables. Just don't take your trash there, but pizza boxes, large bags of cans, that kind of stuff. Keep that stuff, and we can recycle it there, and that goes towards the diversion rate that counts for Recycle Mania. And not only does it just count for Recycle Mania, but it's a good thing to do anyway. So, yes, north of the Derby complex of that parking lot.
Further questions? Vice President Pitts?
I'd like to know, are we defending a Big 12 title for Recycle Mania?
So 2018, we won. And in the standings so far that we've been checking weekly, we've been bouncing back and forth between first and third. So we stepped it up this last week.
Are there any more questions for our speaker? Intern Beasley.
Where is KU on that ranking?
They're not even in the top 5.
Hell yeah.
All right, are there any more questions? All right, seeing none, thank you, Philip. Are there any more directors who would like to give a report? President Keel.
Good evening, everyone. So hopefully you all saw our tweets this past week. Our textbook survey officially closed. We closed out at a little over 1,800 responses, so we're really happy with that. Gave out our gift cards thanks to the union, so I think that really helped our response rate. Going from now, we'll start gathering our report, and we'll start combining with the other Regent institutions, and then hopefully present to the Board of Regents with that report in May at our last meeting. Another thing about open textbooks, the Open Alternative Textbook Committee is going to start reviewing their spring applications. They're looking for students to help them out on that. So Miranda, Alec, and I all served on the committee last semester, but all of us are graduating. So we want to make sure we're getting students in there that can continue on serving on that committee and making sure that the Affordable Textbook Initiative is moving forward. So it's a really great experience. It's only an hour and a half time commitment. So if you're looking to learn more, this is a great place to start. Another thing, I think Bill's gonna maybe talk about it more, but make sure you're RSVPing to the banquet and filling out the survey for awards so that we can get those done for next week. Another thing, Tuesday night we had our TFSC meeting for human ecology. So we had 2 fees come forward this year, both passed unanimously. So that was for apparel, textiles, interior design, as well as personal financial planning. From here on out, it'll just be TFSC meeting for the rest of the semester. We'll be approving the process for all of those fees, including engineering. So we can put that in our final report, and then starting discussion on tuition, as well as what the committee thinks about department level fees. We're gonna kind of bring that discussion up again since we saw it for a second year in a row. My last thing, IT is currently looking for students to participate in listening sessions, wow, about the customer relationship management software programming. I don't know, Bill can talk about it more too. But essentially what they're trying to do is, as students, we are all part of a system that manages our information, and then we receive messaging from that when you're a prospective student as well as when you're admitted, and they're trying to look for a new system to bring to campus, and they want to hear our opinions about it. So if you have any interest in IT, it should be an interesting meeting. They'll probably take an hour and a half, and they'll be looking for that in early April. So if you're interested about that or the Open Textbook Committee, please email me and I'll stand for questions.
Any questions for President Keel? Cool. All right. Seeing none, are there any more directors who would like to give a report? All right. If not, we'll now move into approval of minor allocations. Bill 78. I'm sorry.
I move to refer Bills 78 and 84 back to committee. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to refer Bills 78 and 84, you said?
Yes.
Back to committee. If we could move into final action on that bill first, and then entertain that motion. So now,
Just 78.
yeah. Okay. Now just 78. So yeah. So now, if you could come up for Bill 78, referring just Bill 78 back to committee.
So it's a minor allocation. So final approval.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
All right, so communication error between myself, my committee, Ryan. I spent the last 2 weeks in Australia on a study abroad trip, and I hate to make excuses, but these 2 bills did not ever make it back to a committee for an official referral vote. So luckily for us, we have another week to get this business done. So if we refer it back, our committee can meet on it, have an actual vote on these 2 bills, discussion and stuff, and then we'll see the same 2 next week probably. So that's the only reason why. We just want to make sure everything's done correctly. So.
All right, with that, are there any questions? Senator Cole.
When and where does your committee meet?
Our committee usually meets on Sunday evenings at 7 o'clock in CSI.
Is that going to be your meeting time?
Yeah, we will meet on Sunday at 7 o'clock in CSI.
Senator Wilhelm?
This is more of a parliamentary inquiry. Do we need to have a motion to refer, or does this automatically get referred back since it wasn't even met upon? Does that make sense?
I think what he's saying is technically it should. It shouldn't be even on the register or the agenda for today, but it was a mistake. I just didn't get to you in time, so I'm just doing this now to clear things up.
Can we give you 1 second on that one, Senator Wilhelm, and come back to it? Thank you. Intern Booz.
Yeah, why are there votes on the student senate meeting agenda like favorably 6-0, like you didn't actually?
Well, that was just a mistake. Like I said again, like what happened was I was gone, and then our committee was supposed to meet, and then usually we have the 6 members present, and then our committee's supposed to meet. I didn't get back till late Sunday, and that's when our committee meets, and we weren't going to have a meeting because I thought they met before, so then I just put it back in there thinking that we did meet, and everything went good because I didn't hear anything. I had like no Wi-Fi there the whole trip. Okay. And then when I got back, I just did it at the airport when I was sitting there waiting for my next flight, and then I realized that I made a mistake. So if we do this, then everything gets done correctly. We can meet on it, all that.
Okay.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, Senator Wilhelm, could you repeat your question one more time?
Yeah, I was going to say, is both these bills null and void since it wasn't referred out of committee? So I think it should have stayed in committee and it should have been brought back up.
So in the statutes, it says legislation will be returned to Student Senate for final action unless held by a majority vote of the committee. So the default is that it comes back each time.
That's good. I think so. Is there any debate against sending Bill 78 back to committee? Any more debate at all? All right. If not, all right. So this is a majority vote, so we will vote by raising your right hand. All in favor of referring Bill 78 back to committee, please raise your right hand. All right. All opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? In the opinion of the speaker, that motion carries. Bill 78 will be referred back to the On-Campus Allocations Committee. We'll now move into final action. Will the author of Resolution 44 please come forward? Have any changes been made?
No.
All right, your first right to debate.
All right. This is just amendments that the College of Business College Council made to their constitution. Nothing really substance related. There's a change like from OSAS to CSI, and the removal of 2 officer positions. But that's all. Vote yes.
All right, with that, are there any questions or corrections for the author? All right, seeing none, is there any more debate on Resolution 44? All right, if not, all right, we'll go ahead and move into a roll call vote on Resolution 44. Hand vote on Resolution 44. All in favor of Resolution 44, please raise your right hand. All right, all opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? In the opinion of the speaker, Resolution 44 passes. We'll now move into Resolution 45. Will the author please come forward? Have any changes been made?
Not to my knowledge.
All right, first right to debate.
Yep, like I explained right before break, these are the official election results. This does not mean we are swearing all of these individuals into these positions. I do want to make that clear because there's a little bit of confusion right before break about that issue. But this is just confirming that these are the results that showed up after the election that we had about a month ago. Yeah.
All right, with that, are there any questions or corrections for the author? All right, seeing none, is there any additional debate on Resolution 45? If not, all in favor of Resolution 45, please raise your right hand. All right, all opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? In the opinion of the speaker, Resolution 45 passes. We'll now move to Resolution 46. Will the author please come forward? Have any changes been made?
No.
All right, your first right to debate.
So this is just approving the student-centered tuition enhancements allocations for fiscal year 2020. As mentioned last meeting, we had a total of $828,732 requested, and we're allocating just over the amount that we're projected to have in the budget. We're projected to have around $700,000. We're allocating $711,000, but there's currently excess funds of $450,000 in the reserve account, so it shouldn't cause any issues. Vote yes.
All right, with that, are there any questions for the author? Seeing none, is there any additional debate? All right, if not, all in favor of Resolution 46, please raise your right hands. All opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? All right, Resolution 46 passes. We'll now move to Bill 68. Will the author please come forward? Have any changes been made?
Yes, there were two changes made to the bill. So on line 134, the verbiage was changed in the new clause just to kind of be a little bit more general. And then we actually totally deleted the newly added section 6 in the bill. That section was just specifying that intern coordinators would be an independent position. The independent positions article already specifies that any position that is not like already stated will be an independent position. So it was just redundant, so we got rid of it.
All right, you have first right to debate.
Yeah, so I would highly recommend that you vote yes on these changes. They're kind of minor. Sadie and I touched on them earlier, and so did Lily in her presentation on the special committee. Really, this is just kind of streamlining the intern program for the next year. So I would highly advise that you vote yes.
All right, with that, are there any questions for the author? Okay, seeing none, is there any debate in the negative? Any more debate at all? All right, if not, we will move into a roll call vote on Bill 68.
Adams. Armstrong.
Yes.
Arnaldi.
Yes.
Belk. Betancourt.
Yes.
Bergston.
Yes.
Bothwell.
Yes.
Bowen.
Yes, by proxy.
Boykin. Brown.
Yes.
Burke.
Yes.
Carpenter.
Yes.
Cole.
Yes.
DeMaranville.
Yes.
Dunfield. Esses.
Yes.
Gammon.
Yes.
Gillian King.
Yes.
Grover.
Yes.
Hammond.
Yes.
Heatherman.
Yes.
Alec Hildreth.
Yes.
Derek Hildreth.
Yes.
Huffman.
Yes.
Javin.
Yes.
Karamali.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Kidd.
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Kulkarni.
Yes.
Leverett.
Yes.
Maury.
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
Morgan. Neatery.
Yes.
Orth.
Yes.
Orzakowski.
Yes.
Pelton.
Yes.
Penny.
Yes.
Rice.
Yes.
Riffle.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Roman.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Spellman.
Yes.
Spencer.
Yes.
Sullivan. Tile.
Yes, by proxy.
Thompson.
Yes.
Chumlin.
Yes.
Wessel.
Yes.
Wilhelm.
Yes.
And Whitmer.
Yeah.
Okay. Bill 18-1968 passes 48 to 0 to 0.
All right, we'll now move to Bill 70. Will the author please come forward? Have any changes been made?
Yes, in the original copy of the bill, somewhere in one of the whereas clauses, there was a red dash line that was removed. I don't know where, I'm sorry.
All right, you have first right to debate.
Cool. Okay, so I think that the presentation kind of led up to this, so I don't want to be too redundant, but I do think it is important that we're all being very intentional about this change. And I think it is important that we give this bill its due consideration. We are changing a standing committee that has existed for the last few years in SGA, so I think it's important that we take a second and look at everything that is being done and why we're doing it. So just kind of summarizing the whereas clauses, which you can all look at. So we see that the special committee has been created, and we'll go student engagement first. So student engagement has been created to engage students, the community, and just every piece of K-State and trying to get Manhattan as well, to engage students in SGA. And when you look at the specific bylaws of the Student Engagement Committee, it looks at spreading the SGA message and this outreach and education piece, so looking at the education piece. And as Vedant, Kulkarni, the current chair of student engagement, said this year, with the changes to the intern program that is now educating, as we can see, in an in-depth manner, lots and even more students than we have reached in the past, and also with the creation of the communications director, we see there just isn't as much of a need for this kind of out-facing, this is what SGA is piece. And while there still is that need, and there still is pieces of that in this new committee, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, student engagement has become less focused on that, I would say, and there's time for student engagement to also do more. So that is where the piece of the special committee comes in. The special committee has, again, existed for the last 4 years, and it's just generally kind of inefficient when we have a standing committee that has time and wants to be doing more, and has a special committee that requires senators to serve on a second committee and have additional members in that piece. So when we combine these two things so that we can better use everyone's time and also better serve SGA and better serve the student body and reviewing our internal practices while also trying to engage and work with students and not just advertise to them, we can better do our jobs here and hopefully positively impact students more efficiently and more effectively and create a better impact. Next, we can see, kind of going down, and just again, we should continually review and be intentional and not just create a special committee and hope that a special committee every single year will be created to review what we're doing and ensure that what we're doing is correct and, good, I guess, to put it simply, and not very beautifully. And we can also see that there are other universities, especially our peers in the Big 12 and Kansas Board of Regents universities, that have these or similar committees to these. So this name, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, comes from those other committees, and looking at those pieces and seeing what will work for K-State, what will work here, what we can do differently to improve on what other committees have done across the state and across the country is really important and has been done intentionally. And also we need a legislative piece to this. So later on in tonight's agenda is the creation of the ILC, the Intercultural Learning Council that has it's kind of a joint committee. Getting words from Jordan, it's an SGA committee. It is an SGA committee, but it also works with the Office of Student Life and with Adrian Rodriguez. I don't know his position, sorry, Adrian. But anyway, so that has representation from SGA, but is co-chaired by the student body president and has appointed executive branch members, but doesn't have legislative branch members specifically appointed to it. And with K-State reaffirming its, focus and intentionality on diversity, equity, and inclusion issues, we need to ensure that K-State SGA and KSU SGA is working towards those in an intentional manner, and that has a legislative home where we are working on these issues and give them the focus they deserve and the focus that our university has given to them. So I guess quickly, just kind of going through the membership, again, we've talked about this, so it's flexible in the number of senators, it's also flexible in the number of at-large members, though it's capped at a total of 13. We have executive representation and we have judicial representation because we have seen that that has been a positive piece of the special committee. And finally, just what the committee is going to be doing, performing outreach, and also having this internal piece, looking at the policies and the programs of KSU SGA, and educating Senate on different issues relating to the committee and relating to diversity, equity, inclusion, and finally executing the demographic survey so that we can have an intentional year-round focus on that information rather than just treating it like a blip. So with that, I urge you to vote yes. I hope that you all feel good about this bill. I know that the special committee has put a lot of time into it, and we have taken into a lot of consideration, had a lot of good discussions, and ultimately have felt that this bill and this committee is what we need in SGA, and so I hope that you all take that into consideration and pass it. Thank you.
With that, are there any questions for the author? All right. Seeing none, is there any debate in the negative? Any debate at all? All right. Seeing none, we will move into a roll call vote on Bill 70.
Adams. Armstrong.
Yes.
Arnoldi.
Yes.
Belk. Betancourt.
Yes.
Bergston.
Yes.
Bothwell.
Yes.
Bowen.
Yes, by proxy.
Boykin. Brown.
Yes.
Burke.
Yes.
Carpenter.
Yes.
Cole.
Yes.
DeMaranville.
Yes.
Dunfield.
Yes.
Esses.
Yes.
Gammon.
Yes.
Gillian King.
Yes.
Grover.
Yes.
Hammond.
Yes.
Heatherman.
Yes.
Alec Hildreth.
Yes.
Derek Hildreth.
Yes.
Huffman.
Yes.
Javin.
Yes.
Carmali.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Kidd.
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Kulkarni.
Yes.
Leverett.
Yes.
Mari.
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
Morgan. Neatery.
Yes.
Orth.
Yes.
Orzakowski.
Yes.
Pelton.
Yes.
Penny.
Yes.
Rice.
Yes.
Riffle.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Roman.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Spellman.
Yes.
Spencer.
Yes.
Sullivan. Tile.
Yes, by proxy.
Thompson.
Yes.
Chumlin.
Yes.
Wessel.
Yes.
Wilhelm.
Yes.
And Whitmer.
Yes.
Okay, Bill 1890-70 passes 48-2020.
We'll now move to Bill 79. Will the author please come forward? Have any changes been made?
The change was made on the floor last time to add Joshua Arnoldi as an author, and that change was reflected.
All right, you first right to debate.
Okay, so you just did that. Cool, thank you. But now the Constitution? Bylaws. No, Constitution. Okay, anyways. Needs to be changed to reflect that the duty of the demographic survey has been moved away from the Speaker Pro Tempore to the new Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Standing Committee. So you should do that.
Any questions for the author? All right, seeing none, is there any additional debate? All right, if not, we'll move into a roll call vote on Bill 79.
Adams. Armstrong.
Yes.
Arnoldi.
Yes.
Belk. Betancourt.
Yes.
Bergston.
Yes.
Bothwell.
Yes.
Bowen.
Yes, by proxy.
Boykin. Brown.
Yes.
Carpenter. Or Burke, sorry.
Yes.
Carpenter. Cole.
Yes.
DeMaranville.
Yes.
Dunfield.
Yes.
Esses.
Yes.
Gammon.
Yes.
Gillian King.
Yes.
Grover. Hammond.
Yes.
Heatherman.
Yes.
Alec Hildreth.
Yes.
Derek Hildreth.
Yes.
Huffman.
Yes.
Javin.
Yes.
Carmali.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Kidd.
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Kulkarni.
Yes.
Leverett.
Yes.
Mari.
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
Morgan. Neatery.
Yes.
Orth. Orzakowski.
Yes.
Pelton.
Yes.
Penny.
Yes.
Rice.
Yes.
Riffle.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Roman.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Spellman.
Yes.
Spencer,
Yes.
Sullivan, Tile, Thompson,
Yes.
Chumlin,
Yes.
Wessel,
Yes.
Wilhelm,
Yes.
and Whitmer.
Yes.
Is there anybody I missed? All right, seeing none, Bill 181979 passes 44 to 0 to 0.
All right, we'll now move to Bill 80. Will the author please come forward? Senator Wilhelm?
I move to both roll call 80, 81, and 82. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to hold Bills 80, 81, and 82 for bulk roll call. If there are no objections, Bills 80, 81, and 82 will be held for bulk roll call. Have any changes been made?
Yeah, there were changes made on the floor last week to lines 55 and 56 referencing the Constitution.
All right, you have first rights to debate.
Yeah, so just as a reminder, this is the continuance of the K-State Student Union Food Contract Termination Agreement, and this is the agreement made a few years ago when they built the new union with the renovation, and we had to pay off Sodexo, which we had a food contract with, in order to bring in and be more flexible with our own food options. With that, the university paid for that payout, but as students, we are paying the university back at 0% interest until the year 2022, I believe. And so this is a regular payment, and there's not much flexibility.
All right, with that, are there any questions for the author? All right, seeing none, is there any additional debate? All right, if not, we'll move to Bill 81. Have any changes been made?
No. Do we have the rest of this up here? It ends at Bill 80. I can grab a computer too, but thank you. Bill 81. This is the continuance of the K-State Student Union Repair and Replace Reserve Privilege Fee. So as the bill reads, this is $25,000 that goes into a fund, and this is more for those unforeseen circumstances that are one-time and large expenses. I used the example last time, if the roof were to collapse or different things like that, we would be able to repair that in unforeseen circumstances. So this is $25,000 that goes into a reserve fund, and that has to be approved by the Privilege Fee Committee to pull from this fund for those large projects.
All right, with that, are there any questions for the author? All right, seeing none, is there any additional debate on Bill 81? All right, if not, we'll move to Bill 82. Have any changes been made?
Yes, there are the same changes on these bills where it references back to the Constitution, and we just changed a section number in the section numbers on that to make those correct.
All right, first right to debate.
Yeah, this is the repair and replace. This is a continuance of that account. As the bill reads, $419,227, and this is for more expected repair and replace on different things in the union. The union came forward with an entire plan, short and long term, of different things that obviously need replaced with all the student traffic, and that ranges from smaller things like couches and things that we have, in CSI, but also larger things such as HVAC units and some of those foreseen things that just provide wear and tear.
All right, with that, are there any questions for the author? Intern Glasgow.
So I noticed that on all three bills and on Bill 81, there were a couple of changes that we made last time that I don't think were made.
Okay.
So the line number font, and then on Bill 81, line 82, it still reads Bill 1819XX. So I don't know if those changes weren't made or
on
the wrong version.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, so Bill 181981, line 82, it reads Section 2, Bill 1819XX.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. And seeing that line numbers do not change any intent of the bill, nor the number on 82, I would not see that as any concern, but thanks for bringing that up.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, is there any additional debate on Bill 82? All right, if not, we'll move into a bulk roll call vote on Bills 80 through 82.
Adams. Armstrong. Arnaldi.
Yes.
Belk. Betancourt.
Yes.
Bergston.
Yes to all.
Bothwell.
Yes to all.
Bowen.
Yes to all by proxy.
Boykin. Brown.
Yes to all.
Burke.
Yes to all.
Carpenter.
Yes to all.
Cole.
Yes to all.
D. Moranville.
Yes to all.
Dunfield.
Yes to all.
Esses.
Yes to all.
Gammon.
Yes to all.
Gillian King.
Yes to all.
Grover.
Yes to all.
Hammond.
Yes to all.
Heatherman.
Yes to all.
Alec Hildreth.
Yes to all.
Derek Hildreth.
Yes to all.
Huffman.
Yes to all.
Jabin.
Yes to all.
Carmali.
Yes to all.
Kavanaugh.
Yes to all.
Kidd.
Yes to all.
King.
Yes to all.
Kulkarni.
Yes to all.
Leverett.
Yes to all.
Maury.
Yes to all.
Marshall,
Yes to all.
Morgan, Niedery,
Yes to all.
Orth,
Yes to all.
Orzakowski,
Yes to all.
Pelton,
Yes to all.
Penny,
Yes to all.
Rice,
Yes to all.
Riffle,
Yes to all.
Rodriguez,
Yes to all.
Roman, Smith,
Yes to all.
Spellman,
Yes to all.
Spencer,
Yes to all.
Sullivan, Tile,
Yes to all by proxy.
Thompson,
Yes to all.
Chumlin,
Yes to all.
Wessel,
Yes to all.
Wilhelm,
Yes to all.
and Whitmer. Whitmer.
Yes. To all.
Okay. Bills 80 through 82 passed by a bulk roll call vote of 48 to 0 to 0.
All right, we'll now move to Bill 83. Will the author please come forward? Have any changes been made?
No.
All right, your first right to debate.
I don't need it. So we closed accounts a couple weeks ago, but we missed one, and so we need to close this account as well. And that's it. But yes.
All right, further questions? Or are there any questions? All right, if not, is there any debate in the negative? Any debate at all? Seeing none, we'll move into a roll call vote on Bill 83.
Adams, Armstrong,
Yes.
Arnaldi,
Yes.
Belk, Betancourt,
Yes.
Bergston,
Yes.
Bothwell,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes by proxy.
Boykin, Brown,
Yes.
Burke,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Cole,
Yes.
DeMarenville,
Yes.
Dunfield,
Yes.
Esses,
Yes.
Gammon,
Yes.
Gillian King,
Yes.
Grover,
Yes.
Hammond,
Yes.
Heatherman,
Yes.
Alec Hildreth,
Yes.
Derek Hildreth,
Yes.
Huffman,
Yes.
Javin,
Yes.
Karamali,
Yes.
Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Kidd,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Kulkarni,
Yes.
Leverett,
Yes.
Mari,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
Morgan, Niedery,
Yes.
Orth,
Yes.
Orzakowski,
Yes.
Pelton,
Yes.
Penny,
Yes.
Rice,
Yes.
Riffle,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Roman,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Spellman,
Yes.
Spencer,
Yes.
Sullivan, Tile,
Yes by proxy.
Thompson,
Yes.
Chumlin,
Yes.
Wessel,
Yes.
Wilhelm,
Yes.
and Whitmer.
Yes.
Bill 18, 1983 passes 48 to 0 to 0.
All right, we'll move to Bill 84. Chair Bergson. Well, if you want to make, do you want to make
Yeah,
your
I
motion?
want to make the same motion to refer back to committee for the same reason.
Second.
All right, it's been made and seconded to refer Bill 84 back to committee. Are there any questions?
I don't know why this is being referred.
All right. If not, is there any additional debate on this motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor of referring Bill 84 back to On-Campus Allocations Committee, please raise your right hand. All right, all opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? All right. Bill 84 will be referred back to the On-Campus Allocations Committee. We'll now move to Bill 85. Have any changes been made?
Yes, to lines 75 and 85 to just correct them for the references to the Constitution, but it does not make any changes to the intent of the bill.
All right, with that, your first right to debate.
Yeah, so this is the increase to the operations privilege fee for the K-State Student Union, the last one that you will see for the union tonight. It really sums it up in the last three whereas clauses why the privilege fee committee deemed this increase necessary. And it comes down to two things: accommodating the needs to students because of Hale Library, and then also increasing wages of student workers here in the union to help them become more competitive in their wages and compete with the university and also around the community as well. And so those are the two intents of the increase, which is a 3% increase, which comes out to a little over $50,000. And there it is. Yep, and that is about $1.75 million that is allocated per year to the union. And so this is kind of the larger chunk of that goes to operations, which covers salaries, staff, students, and the administrators as well, or the people who run the union as well. Yeah.
All right, with that, are there any questions for the author? Senator Negri.
Yeah, so first off, just so that I'm clear, is this a 3% increase one time or like compounding on top of each other?
Yeah, this is a one-time 3% increase that will be level throughout the next 3 years. And so that's $1,007 million for the next 3 years. It is not compound. Thanks, Sarah. Yes.
Follow up.
And my other question was, I reviewed your guys' minutes and noticed that most of your discussion was based off of like their goals for the year, and that's what the increase was for. Was there any discussion over like figuring out how they can maybe decrease other things in their current budget to fit these really important things in?
Yeah, so we definitely ask a lot of any entity that comes in and gets reviewed by the Privilege Fee Committee, and that comes with a lot of financial documents, especially along with some of their goals and things that they're working on short and long term. A few different things that I want to point out that we had access to on top of all of their finances, revenues, expenses of the past year. I think a big thing that answers that question is they really showed us their opportunities that that the union is jumping on to make more revenue. One of their big revenue generators is is Chick-fil-A actually, and really kind of capitalizing on that system. And they also punched on a lot of threats too. The biggest one there is the decrease in sales in the campus store, and really a lot with supporting more students because of the loss of Hale Library. Another thing to point out that was definitely on our radar is with the budget modernization plan, what that is going to look like. In different aspects, the university pays the union a little bit of money for a few services, such as the university has access to renting some rooms, and so they do get a little bit of money, but they also pay a fee back to the university as well, which is about $60,000 now. With the way the budget remodernization works, it's still very up in the air what that will look like, how much they will be required to pay in the future. And that honestly is not very fun to look at things and say, I don't know, but that is exactly how we have to do it. That's exactly how we do it in tuition and fee strategies, and we really have to look at their plan, where they're at now and where they're going for the next 3 years, and that was the decision made by Privilege Fee.
All right, further questions? Senator Cole?
Is there any binding language in this that guarantees that this increase will go to student wages?
Yeah, and so one thing that we go back and forth with Privilege Fee on all entities as well is really finding that balance of how much we restrict them, but also letting them be open and trusting of their funding. And so to answer your question blatantly, no, there's nothing in here that says this is exactly where that money is going from. The really checks and balances there, John, is when this is reviewed in 3 years, or I'm going to remind anyone, they can be pulled out of cycle at any time, but their next review cycle is at 3 years. The old legislation is pulled up, and right there in the whereas clauses, it states exactly where this funding is going. Let's say this funding kind of gets averted in different ways, which I do not foresee that happening. The checks and balances there fall on that next Privilege Fee Committee to recognize that and ask those harder, tougher questions. And what I could see happening in that situation is either a cut in funding or some very strong conversations on how they're utilizing student fees.
It's done. Time for questions is expired. Is there a motion to extend? Intern Coordinator Bothwell.
I move to extend the speaker's time for questions by 5 minutes.
Yep.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to extend the time for questions by 5 minutes. If there are no objections, 5 more minutes for questions. Intern Coordinator Bothwell.
Yeah, so part of the whereas clauses on here talk about like difficulty in competing with like on-campus employers. and within like the Manhattan community because of the wages that the union pays. Has like the union been struggling like for the past few years? Like, have they found it difficult to like hire like student employees on campus because of the wages that they offer?
Yes, that is one thing that was definitely brought up throughout their presentation to us. And one thing that makes that really tricky is, first of all, they have to compete against the university as well. I know that some people think, oh, it's one and the same thing. It is really not in how that works. So they have to compete against all these jobs, whether many of you do research for a professor or TA, many different things around campus or work on the grounds. So they are competing against that as well as the community as well. And retainment of some of those positions has been tricky, and they also brought up an issue with the quality of employees that they get as well. And that's not to go that they mentioned many times how much they value their student employees, but sometimes they have a higher turnover rate than they would like, and this is an issue that they see not necessarily, totally fix it, but really step in the right direction in supporting students with their wage, as well as helping the union with retention and quality employees, because they are competing against the university and community. Did that answer your question?
All right, further questions? Senator Cole.
Do you know the rationale behind the 3 no votes on this?
Yeah, so some of the rationale behind the 3 no votes on this, some of that came from people being hesitant of an increase to the union, and some of that too was because some hesitation and maybe not digging deep enough into some other documents and really figuring out, pressuring them to cut back on their budgets. I know that some of those no votes are because of concerns of maybe they could find that wiggle room in their budgets to help students, or really cut back and not put that extra pressure on students. And that I believe is where most of those no's came from when this did come back to Senate.
All right, further questions? Okay, seeing none, is there any?
It's for the debate.
Is there any debate in the negative? Senator Cole.
All right. Good evening, Student Senate. I just wanted to come before you tonight to urge you not to support Bill 1819-85 for a few reasons. First, I feel not enough time has been spent scrutinizing the K-State Student Union's budget on this area. The Privilege Fee Committee looked heavily at the UPC budget, and we spent weeks on that, and felt that there was excessive spending going on that warranted a cut of $4,000. Now, without the same scrutiny, we are giving the K-State Union an increase of $51,000. That's not a small chunk of change. That's a lot of money. Second, I feel like there's discrepancies between how we've handled the cuts earlier this year and the increase now. Privilege Fee has had a line-by-line breakdown of UPC's expenditures, but the same was not done for the K-State Student Union. In 2017, the union spent $35,000 on the Willie the Wildcat statue that's on the first floor, of which many students expressed their displeasure of the frivolous spending. I am certain if there was a line-by-line breakdown of the union's expenditures, there would be more areas that they could cut that would be identified. Third, this bill has been written to be necessary to increase the student employee wages and aid the rising operational needs. However, there's no section statements that bind the union to this. And to me, that's a little bit alarming, because they are trying to say, hey, we should increase student wages, but there is no binding agreement to that. There's simply just a check going on. So I urge my fellow senators to vote this proposal down, and I yield my time.
All right, with that, are there any questions for the speaker? All right, seeing none, is there any debate in the positive? Treasurer Martin.
All right, I'd just like to clear up at least one thing that a previous speaker stated that I don't know was fully transparent and fully true. The $35,000 statue of Willie the Wildcat, regardless of whether you think it was a good expenditure or not, it was privately funded by a donor that specifically wanted a Willie the Wildcat statue to be in the K-State Student Union. So it was either we bought a Willie the Wildcat statue or the $35,000 didn't come to K-State. Sure, it's probably a bad use of money, but some donor wanted that. Second, I struggle to believe that, so I'm not on the Privilege Fee Committee, but I struggle to believe that there was a huge discrepancy between any of the times that in the past looking at huge budgets like rec services and Lafine in past years that I was on the Privilege Fee Committee. I really doubt that there was a big discrepancy this year. And in particular, when you look at a budget like the Union Program Council, it's a lot smaller, so it's a lot easier to get lost in the weeds and just look at like every single line. With the union's budget, you more have to look at every single line of like big overarching categories. And I think that that's what they've done here. And I think that there's nothing wrong with this bill. It's not going to be increased, like $53,000 sounds like a lot of money, but when it comes down to each student per semester, it's really not a huge sum of money. And in these next couple of years, while Hale Library is still not fully open, it's going to be really important that this K-State Student Union is supported very well so that we can have this building support both the regular union operations as well as library operations. And I stand for questions.
All right, with that, are there any questions for the speaker? Senator Cole.
Do you know if there's any cultivation going on with the donor that donated the $35,000 to get them to donate it to something that was useful to students? I know that there's a donor that wanted to buy a Willie the Wildcat statue, and that's what he wanted. I wasn't in the conversations to try and get him to donate something else, but like that's really up to the foundation, and that's not really the purview of the union or the union director or really anybody in this building.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, is there any debate in the negative? Any debate in the positive? Any more debate on Bill 85? Debate in the positive or the negative? Negative. Debate in the negative. Senator Brown.
Hello, I'm one of the members that did vote no for referring it favorably out of committee, so I just wanted to give a little bit of context for why I made that decision. I personally just felt like I was not 100% behind a 3% increase, maybe more discussions on possibly looking at their current budget, and more discussion on that would have been helpful for me to feel completely okay with this increase, possibly looking at an increase just for the $35,000 for raising the student salaries is something I might have been more comfortable with. So I just don't feel 100% in my heart like I can support this bill. So that is why I will be voting no.
All right, with that, are there any questions for the speaker? Senator Cole.
Did you have enough time to look at the union's budget to identify areas that they could cut, for example?
We were given a lot of resources, and I do think we had enough time individually to review those, yes.
Further questions? Is that a question? Chair Colburn.
Was there any indication that like made you suspicious that they wouldn't use it on student? Or like could you speak to that, why you wanted a specific piece about it having to go to student salaries?
Yeah, I 100% think that they're going to use this money as intended. As I said, for the student salaries, and then for the increase, I just do not, or the increase for the operational due to Hale. I don't have a problem with them thinking they'd spend it incorrectly.
Further questions, Intern Booz?
So you would be more willing to support a, say, 2% increase than a 3% increase? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think that would be something that the committee, that I would have think could be discussion in committee, but also we discussed for a 3%, so it's a group also, not just me.
Senator Cole?
Do you have a breakdown of all services or items that would return a profit to the union, such as like the Chick-fil-A, and what they were doing with those profits?
We had a breakdown of all of the entities that they have, such as the ID service, Chick-fil-A, those different entities, and whether they had a profit or a deficit, but we did not have where that profit went, per se. I refer my speaking rights to Chair Penny.
Yeah, like, for example, Chick-fil-A made, in the fiscal year 17-18, $399,000 in revenue. So that is broken down in reports.
Follow up?
Yeah. And this might be a question more for Jansen. Does it show where that 99,000? Does it show where that profit goes?
It shows the like cost trends and what all they spend their money on too. I guess is what. Yeah.
Does that answer your question? All right. Further questions for the speaker? Okay, seeing none, is there any debate in the positive? Chair Penny.
Yeah, so not necessarily up here to really push you guys to vote yes. I'm just wanting to clear up a little bit of our process and explain that further and the resources that we were granted, and also what a previous speaker mentioned with contingencies and contracts and the precedents for that. First, looking at all of the resources that we were provided by the union, the gathering of those resources has started well in the beginning of last semester, and I've been in contact with Corey since then. We started a Teams drive where all those were uploaded and provided to the committee as with information and them getting added to that drive to have full access to all of those documents. In those documents, it shows cost trends and cost revenues. So like I mentioned earlier, it breaks things out. Chick-fil-A, bowling center, vending, food services, Cat's Den, it really breaks out where all these revenues are coming from. And then directly on the next page, it goes into expenditures. The largest one of those is full-time salaries and student wages and payroll, which is expected from a union of the size, and it's very typical for what a lot of their expenses should be going for. It goes on to explain some different things such as commercial insurance, bank fees, dues and subscriptions, recruitment, and some different administrative things, and also things that they're paying for students there. I would like to put a friendly reminder that fiscal year 17 and 18, this was a $5 million budget, and I know that a lot of students on the committee are business majors, but we are in no ways auditors, and we are in no way to go over $5 million line by line. The role for the auditing comes in with the auditing program through Privilege Fee. Every 3 years, every single entity goes through an audit. The way that it's looked at, they take the contract and they look through the financial documents and ensure every single thing that we have in our contract is spent and it follows our SGA rules. When there is red flags, they come up and we get and we see them and we bring those up in our committees when those are undergone. If there's problems that are seen outside of their cycle, that's when they get pulled out of cycle. This has happened in recent years with KSDB the last few years, having some issues. They get pulled back in, and that is the student check. As far as the comments about audits and contingencies in these contracts, it is precedent that we do not put major restrictions in their contracts. If there were to be major restrictions from those, there would be things back when things were passed in the '96 Privilege Fee saying, they must use this amount of money for, student funding here and this year, and there'd be pages and pages of contracts that would need to go through. It is really a delicate balance between telling them what to do and kind of, and kind of being particular in the way that they spend their money, but also they were chosen in these roles to direct these funds, and we are trusting them with that as well, just as they are trusting us with the fact that we are giving them these contracts and not putting all these restrictions on them. That is the precedence for privilege fee, and I'd love to answer more questions on audits, what the resources were like that they provided, or any questions that you may have.
All right, with that, are there any questions for the speaker? Intern Beasley?
Yes. I'm wondering what is meant by accommodations for students because of the loss of Hale. I understand people are using Union now because Hale is gone, but what accommodations are intended to be provided?
Yeah, is that okay if I bounce that question to the back really quick?
Yeah, so for everyone, I am Corey Williams, I'm the executive director of the KCC. So when we refer to accommodations for Hale Library, as many of you know, we've had some extension as it relates to building hours to accommodate for study needs. We've also opened up our meeting room spaces, let's say 24/7, I won't say 24/7, 24/5. But we've opened up our meeting rooms for study space when they're not being used for meetings, which therefore increases the demand on the space, increases the cleaning needs, increases the utility usage. And so those are the types of things that are being accommodated due to the lack of access to Hale. We've also had an increase in just foot traffic in general at the beginning of the year, so I don't have Craig to speak more specifically to this, but we saw about 10% increase at the beginning of the year. That leveled off, but we've still seen an overall increase in traffic throughout the course of the year because there has not been a library. So those are some of the accommodations. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Thanks, Corey.
Further questions? Senator Indri?
My question's actually for Corey. But just because I'm unsure, because I know every square feet entity is so different, the rec center doesn't actually pay for their utilities, the university does. So how does that work for the union?
The union does pay for it.
Okay.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, is there any debate in the negative on Bill 85? Intern Coordinator Bothell.
Hey everyone, I'm not really debating in the negative. I do have a couple concerns with this bill, so really I just kind of want to get up and voice them so people know why I'm still uncertain on how I'm going to vote at this point. So basically the reason for my concern is part of the reason that the union's getting the increase is to raise student salaries. I totally understand that and think that's a very valid reason. However, I guess I take issue kind of with the idea that it's harder to recruit students to those positions. For those of you who don't know, I work on campus and also make minimum wage at my job on campus. And I'm going to assume that I'm not alone in that, and there's probably other campus entities that also pay minimum wage. So a lot of my concern just stems from the fact that the union's struggling to hire people and has a high turnover rate. I would argue the place that I work also has a fairly high turnover rate for employees. So really, I just feel I'm not certain that this is the best use of student funds right now, particularly after there's been a few really decisive cuts for a much smaller amount earlier this year. I just feel a little confused on a cut this large, all of a sudden just going for it. Again, I'm not saying I'm against student salary increases in any way. I was hoping that maybe someone from the union would be able to just kind of speak more. I know Jansen spoke on it a little bit with my question earlier. But if someone from the union could kind of speak more about the issues that they faced after I'm done talking, I would really appreciate that. So that's all I've got.
If you could yield your time.
Yeah, and I guess I'm going to yield my time.
All right, very good. So when we refer to wage challenges,
I might have to cut you off right there.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Because you're debating in the negative, it might be someone that needs to.
That's kind of what I figured. So I wasn't sure the best way to do it. I just wanted to get up and say that those are my concerns, and if someone could address them, I would appreciate it.
You want me to yield our time to, I can
need
ask a question.
If we could just hold off on that answer until the next debate.
Okay, then he's gonna debate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Questions for the speaker? All right, seeing none, is there any debate in the positive? Chair Kulkarni?
I use my time to.
Yeah.
So just to speak a little bit more to the salaries of the students or students, what we're running into is, for example, we have, let's say, Panda Express in the building, and they pay somewhere between $11, $12, $13 an hour. Even our colleagues in housing and dining, they start their students out at around $8 an hour. We have Subway downstairs that starts out at $9 an hour and pays up to $11 an hour. So the competition is not just with campus, but it's actually inside the building, which makes it that much more difficult. Now we have identified positions where we believe that there is a need for an increase, and there are some positions that may stay closer to the minimum wage. And so when I looked at the numbers here, we're looking at potentially around 37 student employees starting at a minimum of around $8 an hour. So we're not talking about extensive leaps in our wages. We just want to be a little bit more competitive. We have approximately 17 students that will be going to $7.50 an hour. So, and those are students that are at some of our reception desk or provides basic customer service in various areas in the building. So we're not talking about anything extensive, but just some moderate increases to become more competitive with the competition that's in the building. Does that speak to that question?
Yeah, that was exactly the kind of thing.
Okay.
All right, with that, are there any questions for Corey? Caucus Leader Kidd?
Yeah, so when you mentioned those salaries that were offered by like Panda Express, Subway, is that, I mean, I assume the union does not have much mandate over that. That's more or less like the company itself that is like, you can start out at $10 an hour.
Right.
Further questions for Executive Director Williamson? Intern Boost?
What's the total number of students that the union currently employs at minimum wage?
So we, at minimum wage, I'll have to go through some digging on that, but the total employees that we hire, that we have employed at this point, is approximately, it varies between 100 to around 110 over the course of this year. When someone referenced, budget cuts over time, we have had to decrease the number of students that we've been able to employ, partially because of some of the financial challenges that we've experienced. We've also had to not fill a full-time staff position, and I can go on and on about some of the things that we've done in the past, but to answer your specific question, we hire between 100 and 110 currently.
Thank you.
All right, are there any more questions? Caucus Leader Kidd?
Yeah. Can you speak on, trying to phrase this properly, can you speak on any major line items of the overall union budget that weren't exactly in the control of the union or its staff? Question mark? I can't use an example, can I, for my question? Yeah. Sure. So, for instance, paying for the salaries of student services that are housed within the building but don't necessarily relate to what the union does for like it being a building, like that sort of thing. Can you speak to that?
Okay. Yeah, there's several items that are a little bit outside the control of the union that we either try to support or maintain. One of the easy ones to speak to is just utilities. Utility rates and utility fees are well outside of our control. Also, as a result of some of the renovation, there's still some metering taking place, and so that has fluctuated over the last several years. So that's been one. Another would incorporate some support that we provide to CSI. We provide around $82,000 of support towards CSI, partially because of some other challenges that have happened on campus. And with that, as being a part of the family, as it was explained to me when I came on board, the union has taken on some of that responsibility as well. There's also entities within the building that do not pay a lease rate due to occupying their space that's outside of our control. Obviously, some of those support students, and so that obviously helps those entities, and therefore we view that as our way of helping to support students. But that said, they do not contribute back to the union and helping us support the needs of the union. So those are just a few examples. Does that speak to your question?
Time for questions expired. Is there a motion to extend? Intern Hines.
Okay, move to extend debate or questions by a minute. 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to extend the time for questions by 5 minutes. If there are no objections, you have 5 more minutes for questions. Intern Hines.
follow-up to that is what are some of the venues that don't do that? Is that like the library is pale? Or?
Yeah, that's a perfect example. So the space that's being occupied by the library is at no additional cost to the library at this time. Space is occupied, I guess CSI would be another good one, they occupy a large space. The radio station does not pay a lease rate. Power Cap Financial on the third floor does not pay a lease rate back to you. So there's several entities within the building that does not consider that.
Further questions? Caucus Leader Heatherman.
I know this was addressed in committee some, but is there any immediate plan for addressing some of those issues with like supporting, say, CSI on that $83,000? Is there like an immediate plan to try to properly align the two, I guess?
I mean, that's a great question. There is not a plan at this point, as Jansen spoke to. Right now, we're under review, or the university is going through this budget modernization, which I believe we're going to review all of these expenses, I guess, to the union and what the union needs to contribute back to the university and how that takes place both directions. And so at this point, because of the university's process is still under review, the union, there is no immediate plan to either address or realign some of the financial support that's coming from the union to some of these other entities.
Granted.
In the instance that you were no longer paying that additional $83,000, would you be transparent about that to the committee in terms of
Absolutely, yes.
that that's no longer an expense for you?
Absolutely.
All right, further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Corey. Is there any debate in the negative on Bill 85? Seeing none, any debate in the positive? Senator Neatery.
So you all know I'm very passionate about making the privilege free less for students, but I'm about to debate in positive, so bear with me. So first of all, I want to clear up like this level of accountability that we have for directors. All of our directors are so amazing, and in our statutes and bylaws, it doesn't say like all the things that they put in their reports. It doesn't require all those things. Like they're the most transparent of like they're just so transparent because they're not even required to do that. But we're so nitpicky and like critical, which we should be for our students, that like they give us so much information. And it's really, really awesome. So thank you for being here. I think you guys have been here all semester because you guys have like 4 different pieces of legislation that have gone through. Plus you have privy meetings on Monday nights. So thank you for being here. We appreciate you. We see how much that you like care about students, and really, I know like that is your goal. As far as offices that we don't pay for, student government has 3 offices, and I'm pretty sure we don't pay the union for having our 3 offices within CSI. So that's just something to think about too. They're also like being really grateful to us. So it's like, man, we should get those other people to pay for those offices they aren't paying for, but we're part of that group. So just think about that too. I would be really supportive of maybe less of an increase because you know I'm really conservative when it comes to privy dollars. But I think that some of the statements that were made about not trusting people, or we need to put line by line what they're allowed to spend money on. We're not the subject matter experts of their entity, and that is really what Privy's view has been, is that the directors are the subject matter experts, so let's put our trust in them. They have checks and balances. They have those audits. Let's really trust those people, and they're part of the K-State family too. So I'll see them for questions.
All right, with that, are there any questions for the speaker? All right, seeing none, is there any debate in the negative on Bill 85? All right, seeing none, is there any debate at all? Debate in the positive? Okay.
Sorry. I just want to say thank you to Director Corey Williamson. I am going to be voting yes for this piece of legislation now. I just had those couple concerns that I really wanted someone from the union to speak to, and I heard what I wanted to hear, so thank you.
Any questions? All right. Seeing none, is there any debate in the negative? Is there any debate at all? All right, seeing none, is that debate?
No, it's a motion, previous question.
We can just go right in the vote. All right. We will now move into a roll call vote on Bill 85.
Adams. Armstrong.
Pass.
Arnaldi.
Yes.
Belk. Betancourt.
Yes.
Bergston.
Yes.
Bothwell.
Yes.
Bowen.
Yes by proxy.
Boykin. Brown.
No.
Burke.
Pass.
Carpenter.
Yes.
Cole.
No.
DeMoranville.
Yes.
Dunfield.
Yes.
Esses.
Yes.
Gammon.
Yes.
Gillian King.
Yes.
Grover.
Pass.
Hammond.
Yes.
Heatherman.
Pass.
Alec Hildreth.
Yes.
Derek Hildreth.
Yes.
Huffman.
Yes.
Javin.
Yes.
Carmali.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Kidd.
Pass.
King.
Yes.
Kulkarni.
Yes.
Leverett.
Pass.
Maury.
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
Morgan. Neatery.
Yes.
Orth. Kowski.
Yes.
Pelton.
Yes.
Penny.
Yes.
Rice.
Yep.
Riffle.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Pass.
Roman.
Pass.
Smith.
Yes.
Spellman.
Yes.
Spencer.
Yes.
Sullivan. Tile.
Yes, my proxy.
Thompson.
No.
Chumlin.
Yes.
Wessel.
Yes.
Wilhelm.
Yes.
And Whitmer.
Yes.
Okay, go back here to the people that passed real quick. Armstrong.
No.
Burke.
Yes.
Grover.
No.
Heatherman.
No.
Kidd.
No.
Leverett.
Yes.
Morgan. Orth. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Roman.
No.
Okay, is there anybody I missed? All right, seeing none, Bill 18, 1985 passes 39 to 820.
All right, we'll now move to Bill 86. Will the author please come forward? Have any changes been made?
Yes. No. What? That's the one that we're introducing. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
All right,
Got
first
me
order
too.
debate.
Okay. So yeah, to remind everyone, this is just the one that is our non-controversial elections changes, just changing all of the wording and stuff like that makes there be discrepancies within statutes. So that is what this is.
All right, with that, are there any questions for the author? All right, seeing none, is there any additional debate on Bill 86? If not, we will move into a roll call vote.
Adams. Armstrong. You're fine. Arnaldi.
Yes.
Belk. Betancourt.
Yes.
Bergston.
Yes.
Bothwell.
Yes.
Bowen.
Yes by proxy.
Boykin. Brown.
Yes.
Burke.
Yes.
Carpenter.
Yes.
Cole.
Yes.
DeMoranville.
Yes.
Dunfield. Esses.
Yes.
Gammon.
Yes.
Gillian King.
Yes.
Grover.
Yes.
Hammond.
Yes.
Heatherman.
Yes.
Alec Hildreth.
Yes.
Derek Hildreth.
Yes.
Huffman.
Yes.
Javin.
Yes.
Carmali.
Yeah.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Kidd.
Yes.
King.
Yes.
Kulkarni.
Yes.
Leverett.
Yes.
Maury.
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
Morgan. Neatery.
Yes.
Orth. Orzakowski.
Yes.
Pelton.
Yes.
Penny.
Yes.
Rice,
Yes.
Riffle,
Yes.
Rodriguez, Rodriguez, Roman,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Spellman,
Yes.
Spencer,
Yes.
Sullivan, Tile,
Yes, left proxy.
Thompson,
Yes.
Chumlin,
Yes.
Wessel, Wilhelm,
Yes.
and Whitmer.
Yes.
Okay, and then Armstrong.
Yes.
Okay, Bill 18-1986 passes by a roll call vote of 46 to 0 to 0.
All right, we'll now move into introduction of legislation. Is there a motion to consider Bill 87? Chair Kulkarni.
I move that we consider Bill 87. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we consider Bill 87. Will the author please come forward? Chair Spellman.
I move to allow the author to summarize.
It's been moved and seconded that the author be allowed to summarize. All right. If there are no objections, you may summarize.
Okay, cool. Thank you for allowing me to summarize this. I'm going to kind of just run through the whereas clauses because I think it basically defines why we're doing this. And Lily also mentioned the ILC earlier, but basically the Intercultural Leadership Council is a joint collaborative effort between SGA and DMSA. And that really is just trying to pull all these students together in one committee instead of having two separate ones that are essentially doing the same work. The reason that you're seeing it as statute changes here is because since it isn't just an SGA committee, we can't put it in the bylaws. And because of that, we want to have it in the statutes as a way to make sure that it maintains an SGA and isn't something that happens for 1 or 2 years while it's relevant. And then, you know, transitions happen, people come in and out, and then all of a sudden they're not meeting anymore. So we just wanted to have something that was in our governing document so that it can be referred back to. Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. And this is our charter that the group has already met and approved and looked over. Essentially, I'll talk about Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee in the next legislation that I come up here for. But this really lays out a plan for meeting and what our true purpose is and who's going to be on there every year. So.
All right, with that, are there any questions or corrections for the author? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to consider Bill 89? Chair Kulkarni.
I move that we consider Bill 89.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we consider Bill 89. Will the author please come forward?
Okay, so,
Senator Wilhelm.
I move the author be allowed to summarize. Second.
It's
I
been
like
moved and
that.
seconded that the author be allowed to summarize. If there are no objections, you may summarize.
Sweet. So basically, this is the same thing, but instead of adding it to the statutes, this is putting the responsibility within the International Affairs Director and Multicultural Affairs Director to be to serve on the Intercultural Leadership Council. So again, making sure that that responsibility is legislated within our governing documents so that it happens year after year. There's really no other changes and to that point. And the other part is taking out Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Committee from the bylaws. Again, this was a committee that has really lost its purpose in the last couple of years, and we saw declining membership. So we are really looking to the Intercultural Leadership Council to revamp that. It's essentially the same committee, but instead of it just being SGA, it's really taking that university perspective instead of just SGA's perspective.
With that, are there any questions or corrections for the author? Intern Coordinator Bothwell.
Does there need to be a member of the legislative branch on
Yes.
these legislation?
So if there's a senator that would like to be added, okay. I saw Heather and Nathan.
Which two names?
Huh?
Which two names?
Heather and Nathan, or Hannah Heatherman. Hannah Heatherman. Guys, let me stand up here and say, I know it's Hannah, and I say this all the time. I had to give her my cake once because for some reason I always think of Haley Hanneman, who was here last year. So,
Yeah, we'll get both of
Hannah,
those.
I love you.
All right, further questions or corrections? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to consider Bill 88? Intern Coordinator Bothwell.
I move that we consider Bill 88.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we consider Bill 88. Will the author please come forward?
All right, Bill 88, amendments to the Kansas State University statutes concerning the Office of Student Activities and Services by Andrew Booz, Shelby Carpenter, and Hannah Heatherman. Whereas it is necessary to continuously review the Kansas State University Student Governing Association statutes, whereas the Office of Student Activities and Services has became the Center for Student Involvement in 2017, whereas many references to OSAS still exist in the KSU SGA statutes, whereas these references have the potential to cause confusion in readers of the KSU SGA governing documents, and whereas Student Senate does not have the authority to unilaterally alter the constitutions of college councils. Be it enacted that Section 1, all instances of Office of Student Activities and Services, or its acronym OSAS, in the Kansas State University Student Governing Association statutes shall be replaced with Center for Student Involvement, or its acronym CSI, respectively. Section 2, these amendments will not apply to college council constitutions, as Senate may only approve amendments made by the college council itself. Section 3, this bill shall take effect upon passage of the Student Senate and signature of the student body president.
All right, with that, are there any questions or corrections for the author? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to consider Bill 90? Caucus Leader Heatherman.
Move to consider Bill 90.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 90. Will the author please come forward?
I'd also appreciate being allowed to summarize.
Oh, you're Bill 90? Okay. Chair Kulkarni?
I move that the author be allowed to summarize.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the author be allowed to summarize. If there are no objections, you may summarize.
Okay, I am going to read the whereas clauses because that's really common, and also I think it does describe this bill really well. So yeah, this is amendments to re-enumerate the sustainability director and move and streamline the Green Action Fund Committee. Whereas the governing documents of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association should be as clear, consistent, and accurate as possible. Whereas Article 3, Section 3 of the KSU SGA bylaws contains the enumerated positions in the student body president's cabinet. Whereas the position of sustainability director is not currently an enumerated position. Whereas the position of local relations director is currently assigned many duties related to sustainability by the KSU SGA bylaws, including the duty of chairing the Green Action Fund Committee. Whereas Article 4, Section 15 of the KSU SGA bylaws defines the Green Action Fund Committee. Whereas Article 4, Section 15A1 states that the chair of the Green Action Fund Committee shall be the Sustainability Director. Whereas the Green Action Fund Committee is chaired by a member of the executive branch. Whereas committees that are primarily or entirely executive in nature should be defined in Article 3 of the KSU SGA bylaws, as Article 3 deals with the executive. And whereas sustainability is a topic worthy of an enumerated position in the student body president's cabinet. So to go over what this bill does, Section 1 amends the Article 3, Section 3 to add the sustainability director and put all of what the local relations director was supposed to have been doing regarding sustainability back under the sustainability director. So they will chair the Green Action Fund Committee, as well as serving as the liaison to the K-State Director of Sustainability and serving on the Recycling Advisory Committee. Section 2 strikes Article 4, Section 15, which is the Green Action Fund Committee from the bylaws, and then Section 3 re-adds it as Article 3, Section 7. So if you don't pass Bill 89, then I'm going to have to amend my own bill. So please pass it as well if you pass this one, because that leaves Section 7 open for this bill to take it. And then Section 4 is just this bill, when this bill will take effect, which is when passed and signed. So I stand for questions.
All right, with that, are there any questions or corrections for the author? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to consider Bill 91? Intern Glasscock.
Move to consider Bill 91. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 91. Will the author please come forward?
All right, Bill 18-1991, FY 2019 allocation of sports club funds by the Travel Allocation Committee, whereas the Travel Allocations Committee received and reviewed the Club Tennis National Tournament travel request, whereas Club Tennis will be sending 7 of their members to Phoenix, Arizona for the UTSA On-Campus National Championship from April 10th through April 14th. Whereas Chapter 48 of the Kansas State University Governing Association statutes state that $67,000 shall be dispersed to the sports club organizations on a yearly basis, whereas the Travel Allocations Committee recommended that $5,080 be allocated to build the reserves account in the event of an unexpected mid-year funding request for the current fiscal year, whereas the club tennis team has demonstrated tremendous success throughout the season and has qualified to play at the UTSA Tennis On-Campus National Championship for the first time in club history, whereas Club Tennis is registered with the Center for Student Involvement as an independent student organization, whereas the funds requested by this group and the funding recommendations made as follows. Project 1, UTSA National On-Campus Championship, April 10th through 14th, Phoenix, Arizona. So they requested $1,050. We recommended them $1,050. Be it enacted that upon passage of this legislation by the Student Senate and signature of the student body president, and upon signing of the award agreement by the members of Club Tennis required by the university, Club Tennis shall be awarded and distributed the following amount. Yes.
All right, with that, any questions or corrections? Treasurer Martin?
Lines 8 and 27 should be changed to USTA. It's right on line 19. And it's United States Tennis Association.
Yeah.
Could you repeat those lines one more time?
8 and 27.
Got it.
All right, further questions or corrections? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to consider Bill 92? Senator Wilhelm.
I move Bill 92.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 92. Will the author please come forward? Intern Coordinator Bothwell.
I move that the author be allowed to summarize.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the author be allowed to summarize. If there are no objections, you may summarize.
All right, so first of all, I want to note that there's 2 corrections that I've already made on OrgSync. But on line 19, chapter 35 should be chapter 44. And line 35, the agronomy weeds team, I had it alphabetical, and then I realized that their name was wrong. So that one should be on line 25, and all of those should move down. So agronomy weeds team should be the first alphabetically. So basically, over the last 3 Sundays, excluding the first Sunday of spring break, the academic competitions teams committee has been watching presentations from a lot of academic competition teams, and this is what we ultimately ended up recommending. And one thing to note is that all the recommendations are significantly less than what's requested, and that's because if you look on line 69, the total amount requested was $215,950, and we only have $90,000 to allocate. So pretty much every team got less than what they wanted, and that's the way that academic competition teams committee has been pretty much at least the last 3 years. So.
All right, with that, are there any questions or corrections for the author? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to consider Bill 93? Intern Hines.
I move to consider Bill 93.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 93. Will the author please come forward? Intern Coordinator Bob.
I move that the author be allowed to summarize.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the author be allowed to summarize. If there are no objections, the author can summarize.
I was just trying to look up the number of what I'm presenting, and I figured it out. Okay, can I add Shelby Carpenter as a...
Yeah, just say it right now.
What am I supposed to say? Yes, I'm adding Shelby Carpenter as an author. Okay, I'm allowed to summarize, yeah? I'm so sorry, guys. Okay, so this is the first of the round of changes that we wanted to make, and it was to add something, a clause about particular in reference to disqualification for after the primary election, and it is going to say that in the case of a disqualification following the primary election, that they would take the next highest vote percentage gainer from the primary election. And, you know, if that would happen again, just take the next person and so on. So
All right, with that, are there any questions or corrections for the author? Senator King?
I waive my speaking rights to co-editor-in-chief.
Okay, so what's the plan for cases like this year where the only two candidates in the primary are the candidates in the general?
So then we would take the next write-in. So it's just the results from the primary, so we don't differentiate between people that were filed and people that were write-ins.
Further questions? Chair Spahn?
From line 32 down to 60, at least it's showing on my side, it's a lighter gray. We can change that to black.
We'll get that fixed if it's a problem. Further questions or corrections? All right. Seeing none, we will move into second open period. Are there any speakers for second open period? Bless you. Treasurer Martin.
If you are going to be a sophomore, junior, or senior next year, and you're majoring in accounting, finance, chemical engineering, civil engineering, computer science, electrical engineering, management information systems, materials engineering, which we don't have that at K-State, but or mechanical engineering, consider applying for the Phillips 66 Shield Scholarship. I've been a member of it for the last 2 years. It's a really great program that allows you to connect with leaders in the energy industry and also provides you with lots of enrichment activities and a $3,500 a year scholarship, which has helped me a lot through getting through K-State.
Questions for Treasurer Martin? All right.
The link is at ksu.edu/VPSL, so Vice President of Student Life /Shield, and it closes next Wednesday at midnight, March 27th.
All right. Further speakers? Chief of Staff Moore.
For cabinet members in the room, please don't forget to come get some thank you notes to write to people you worked with throughout the year. Also, that just is an open invitation to anyone if you work really closely with an administrator, faculty, or staff, and you want to write them an SGA thank you note, please feel free to come up and grab some.
Senator Cole.
So, kind of along the lines of the thank you, we sent Representative Marshall our resolution at the very beginning of the year that was talking about the Farm Bill. And Representative Marshall turned around and introduced two pieces of legislation. The first was the Campus Hunger Reduction Act, and the second was the Healthy Foods for All Americans Act. So both of those are aimed at solving food insecurity across the nation. One of them is particular to K-State and like campuses everywhere. So if you could write Dr. Marshall, thank you, I would greatly appreciate that. Or I could give you his initiative director's phone number and you can call him too.
Katie would like it.
Yeah, please call Katie Sawyer too.
Any questions for Senator Cole? All right, seeing none, further speakers. Vice President Pitts.
Throwing it back to what I did every Thursday night last year. So tomorrow is the legislative session. It's great to know what's going on in the state legislature right now, especially as the legislators are seeking an increase in funding to higher education. So it'd be really cool if you guys are all really well versed in that. As usual, that is at noon in the Bluemont room tomorrow, and it is a really valuable thing to go to, and we'll all be there.
Questions for Vice President Pitts? Senator Cole?
Is Sue leading that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right, further speakers. Senator Leverett.
Yeah, hi guys. So we have, hi friends, sorry. We have, so UPC, we're doing Women's History Month. And so we did a women's history of the past, present, we're doing present now. And next week we're going to do future. And so we're taking submissions from anybody who identifies a woman. You can take one of these papers and write it down, or you can email it to us at upc.ksu.edu, and also a photo of yourself. And with these submissions, we'll be hanging them across the union. As of right now, you can see women of the present, beautiful women out there. And as of sometime next week, we're going to start posting the women of the future, so you can see you guys, you all, and your peers. So, yeah.
Questions for Senator Leverett?
Can we do it for someone else, or does it have to be ourselves?
Yeah.
Can I answer that? You can write about someone else. Yeah, but you can write about anyone or anything, any thought, any inspiration, or anything. Like we just want to showcase the women of K-State and show that like maybe the person you sit next to every day thought about something or is interested in something that you would never think about. Also, your submission is an entry for a drawing for a $100 union gift card. And we're giving away 3 to help people with supplies and things because there's a lot of people still buying a lot of supplies for projects. So there's that.
Further questions? All right, further speakers for second open period. Chair Penny?
Yeah, applications for cabinet next year are open on OrgSync. I know we are really going to start pushing them here next week. And even though many of you might not be coming back, I know you have friends and people that you know who are maybe younger that might be really great at some of those positions. So we would really love your help in publicizing those and then also applying if you're interested as well. And so those are on OrgSync, and you should see a lot pushed through social media here in the next week. And Ali, Sadie, and myself are more than happy to sit down with anyone who has any questions or wants to discuss any of our director positions that we have available. So please reach out. We'd love to set up a time and chat too, and please apply.
Any questions for Chair Penny? All right.
I actually have a question.
Senator Cole.
Could you like delineate the difference between your legislative director and legislative defense director, I think is what it's called?
Yeah, and so in making a lot of our positions, the question was differentiating the legislative director and the legislative events director. And so a lot of these recommendations have been brought on by talking with Heather and then the previous administration as well. The big difference there is next year we will be planning Big 12 on the Hill, and so that's going to be a big project for them to work on, and more of the events such as Big 12 on the Hill, Cats to the Capitol, and different things that happen. Maybe not specifically that one, but different events that happen that we go to at the Capitol as well. So those are a little bit more events programming based. The recommendations that we got was that that'd be too much of a job to be the legislative director running all those, while also trying to plan all these events that really all happen kind of now. And so we're trying to alleviate and spur some of those obligations there so that we can set people up for success.
Further questions? Chair Spellman.
Kind of a follow-up to that question. What would legislative advocates look like for next year?
Yeah, legislative advocates for next year. I really don't know a lot about how that would look like. Can I reference that up here to how I was this year?
Yeah, I would assume it wouldn't be any different than what happened this year, except that it's just under legislative. What's the title of it? Legislative director.
Legislative director.
But I mean, it's still a program that would be running. It's legislated in our bylaws, so those would just need to be updated with current titles.
In that verbiage, legislative director was also adjusted so it further complies and aligns with a lot of our peer schools, because that is the verbiage that they use. So when we go to different events, it's really easy. It's a lot easier to pair up with their legislative director rather than we had, we still have local relations, but state relations, federal relations, that is legislative director to help clear any confusion there.
So maybe you're leading right into that, but I assume that change will be made from state relations to legislative in the bylaws.
Yes, and so kind of speaking with our previous administration as well, they kind of, you want to talk about that, making those changes?
So typically what will happen is after this term finishes, during those next like 2 first meetings of the new term, all of that legislation will come through once they've selected the positions and they know like exactly what those responsibilities and duties are going to be, so that we can update them all at once. So like for example, last year we changed, or I guess 2 years ago, we had someone that came in and interviewed for federal relations director when that wasn't an outlined position within cabinet, and so that was something that we had to add to the bylaws. So that's why we wait until it's kind of weird that it's retroactive, but it just helps kind of make the process a little quicker.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, further speakers for second open period. President Keel.
I just want to throw a quick plug out there for next week. It'll be our last Senate meeting of the term. If you are a senior or if you're leaving Senate and not coming back next year, I really encourage you to think about maybe sharing some of your thoughts and experiences of your time in SGA. That's kind of a tradition that we have on that last meeting after we finish all the business. Anyone that this is their last year within Senate, they'll kind of share that with the group, try to pass on some wisdom, and I know that's something that a lot of the younger individuals in the room really look forward to, and they look up to all of you guys, so I just encourage you to put some thought
thought into that before next week.
Any questions for President Keel? Senator Cole.
Hey, so maybe I missed this, but where's the like RSVP thing for the banquet?
It was sent out in Miranda's message. There's a link that has it, and when you open that up, it'll be kind of weird. It just says yes, maybe no, and it doesn't look like you can click it. Just click it, and it'll go through.
You can also just go straight onto WorkSafe, go to events, and find the banquet, and then just hit yes that way too if you don't want to find the link.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, further speakers, Advisor Harlan.
So, in regards to banquet, apparently WorkSafe is phoning it in as their life is about to expire, and I don't know why the docs have disappeared to RSVP. But if you do click on the actual name, yes or no, you can see the tally of how many people have RSVP will increase or decrease as you click. So that's your confirmation that it's working. A couple things on the meal for the banquet. So we'll be at JP's. We'll actually get to eat JP's food, which I think a number of people are excited about. What they're doing for us is they're just providing a limited menu of their total menu, so it's not a free-for-all of everything that they have, but it will be a much better selection than we've ever had in the past. If you've eaten there, though, you know sometimes it may not be the fastest places on the world. So what we're hoping that we can actually do is email everyone who's RSVP and have them choose from the menu so we can place that in advance to hopefully speed that up. So if you've RSVP'd and plan on coming, I'll either let you know, yay or nay, that that's going to work, and then if it is going to work, ask you to kind of make your selections by probably mid of next week so that we can get that to them. Even if it's close, it'll help them get some stuff pre-prepared so that we're not waiting too long for that food. And then we'll try to work in the rest of the program and the rest of the things that go on during banquet based on how long we think that will take and when the food will be there. So we'll make it work, and we definitely know that we need to be out in time to be here before 7, not even at 7. So we'll just make it work, and everyone can look.
Questions for Advisor Harlan? Caucus Leader Kidd.
Yeah, for the limited menu, does it accommodate those that have dietary restrictions?
It should. I mean, when I say limited, it's like 12 to 15 things. Oh. So it's not the 1 or a half that we've had in the past. So.
Further questions? All right, seeing none, are there any more speakers for second open period? All right, if not, we'll move into reference of legislation. Bill 87 is referred to the Executive Committee. Bill 88 is referred to the Senate Operations Committee. Bill 89 is referred to the Senate Executive Committee. Bill 90 is going to Senate Operations. Bill 91 is going to Travel Allocations. Bill 92 is Senate Exec. Bill 93 is Senate Operations. And then Bills 78 and 84 are going to be referred to the On-Campus Allocations Committee. We'll now move into second roll call.
Adams. Armstrong.
Here.
Arnoldi. Here. Belk. Betancourt. Bergston.
Here.
Bothwell.
Here.
Bowen. Boykin. Brown.
Here.
Burke.
Here.
Carpenter.
Here.
Cole.
Hello.
DeMaranville.
Here.
Dunfield.
Here.
Esses.
Here.
Gammon.
Here.
Gillian King.
Here.
Grover.
Here.
Hammond.
Here.
Heatherman.
Here.
Alec Hildreth.
Here.
Derek Hildreth.
Here.
Huffman.
Here.
Javin.
Here.
Carmoli.
Here.
Kavanaugh.
Here.
Kidd.
Here.
King.
Here.
Kulkarni.
Here.
Leverett. Maury.
Here.
Marshall. Morgan. Neatery.
Here.
Orth. Warzakowski.
Here.
Pelton.
Here.
Penny.
Here.
Rice.
Here.
Riffle.
Here.
Rodriguez. Roman.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Spellman.
Here.
Spencer.
Here.
Sullivan. Tile. Thompson.
Here.
Chumlin.
Here.
Wessel.
Here.
Wilhelm.
Here.
And Whitmer.
Here.
Okay, there are 43 senators present, 2 excused, and 8 absent.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn? Intern Booth.
We'll move to adjourn until Thursday, March 28th at 7 p.m.
Second?
And Whitehead Day.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn, same time, same place next week. We're adjourned.
Actually,